we are going to spend some time with a very specific kind of tired. Not just a body that wants to lie down, a heart that feels too tired to care. The causes can be loud or quiet, a long season of holding everything together, a single loss that never really landed, or just the slow drip of days where you go through the motions while what used to matter now feels far away and strangely unreal. You watch yourself answer messages, meet expectations, nod at the right moments. Inside, almost nothing moves. Wherever you are, this state is more common than it looks from the outside. Many people move through their lives like this in secret. They laugh at the right time. They say they are fine. They keep carrying responsibilities. And at night, when the noise falls away, there is only that flatness, that numbness, that heavy, quiet sense that the heart has stepped back from the world. Most of us were taught to call this laziness or weakness or evidence that something in our personality is broken. The inner voice becomes harsh. It says, "What is wrong with you? Other people cope. Why can't you just care?" But this is one way of speaking to yourself. It is not the only way, and it is not the way that helps. Carl Jung would invite you to hear this state differently. In his view, when your heart is this tired, your unconscious is speaking. It speaks through withdrawal, through numbness, through the loss of interest in what once pulled your attention so strongly. Not as a random shutdown, and not as a verdict on your worth, but as a deep, intelligent response to overload, to grief, to long-term self-abandonment. From this perspective, your system is not giving up. It is protecting something essential. It is lowering the volume on the outside so the inside can be heard. The mind and body are trying to settle, to pull you away from patterns that have become too heavy to carry. The state you are in is a signal, not a sentence. So wherever you are in your life right now, you are allowed to feel exactly as flat, empty, or detached as you do. You do not need to force motivation. You do not need to perform gratitude or positivity for anyone, including yourself. The goal is not to suddenly become inspired. The goal, for now, is simply to relate to this tired heart in a different way. In this video, we are not going to demand that you hustle or push or repair yourself overnight. Instead, we are going to explore a gentler experiment, changing how you speak to yourself in the quiet moments before sleep. Over 7 nights, with specific sentences drawn from Jung's way of listening to the soul, we will invite your tired heart into a different kind of conversation. Spoken softly before you drift off, these words can begin to change the relationship between your conscious mind and the deeper layers that are trying to reach you. Very subtle shifts at first. A dream you remember, a tiny spark of interest, a little less weight in the morning. At the end of this section, just know this: the way you talk to yourself before sleep can either push your numbness deeper into the dark or quietly begin to thaw it. In the next part, we will begin to choose that second path, with Jung as our guide. So let yourself settle in here, wherever you are, because we are going to spend some time with a hard story that many tired hearts quietly repeat. It sounds like this: I have stopped caring. I feel nothing. Something is wrong with me. Not just a passing thought, more like a rope that tightens a little more each time you think it, drawing the chest in, cutting off the last bits of warmth. In Jung's language, this rope is not the truth of you. It is a story your mind tells to explain a state it does not yet understand. Jung saw the psyche as self-regulating, almost like a living ecosystem. When one part is overused, another part will withdraw energy to protect the whole. The mind and body quietly move resources away from what is burning you out even if your conscious plans want to keep going. From the inside, this protective movement can feel like apathy. You look at your work, your relationships, the tasks of the day, and there is no response. The old drive will not come when called. But through a Jungian lens, this is not proof that you do not care. It is often the unconscious pulling energy away from outer roles, expectations, and constant performance, because something deeper in you has been ignored for too long. For Jung, symptoms are messages. Numbness, exhaustion, the tired heart that no longer wants to participate in the old rhythm, are not verdicts on your worth. They are signals that the current way of living, thinking, or relating to yourself has reached a breaking point. The goal is not to silence the symptom. The goal is to listen to what it is trying to say. Think of a person who has worked for years in a way that quietly violates their values, always agreeable, always available, never allowed to say no, or someone who smiles through unprocessed grief, telling everyone they are fine while their chest carries a heavy private weight, or the one who meets every mistake with inner criticism so harsh that the heart eventually goes quiet. In each case, the system is overloaded. At some point, the heart simply cannot respond in the old way. If you have stopped caring about everything, it may be because you have been caring too much, for too long, about things that never truly fed your soul. You do not need to call this laziness. You are allowed to see it as a kind of inner strike, a quiet refusal to continue in a direction that harms you. Wherever you are tonight, you are allowed to consider that your tired heart is intelligent, that it is trying, in the only language it has, to save you from a path that has become too narrow, too hard, too far from what is real in you. And here is where our words begin to matter. The way you talk to a tired heart can either tighten the old rope of self-blame or begin a new story of listening. In the next sections, we are going to explore exactly how to speak so that your heart can finally answer back. So let yourself settle in for a moment, wherever you are, and listen to the way your own mind has been talking. For many people with a tired heart, there are a few sentences that come back again and again. What's the point? Nothing matters. I'm just broken. They repeat not as a loud scream, but as a low, constant background noise, humming under everything. At first, they sound like simple observations, just facts about your life. Over time, they become the atmosphere you breathe. You wake up, and the phrase is already there. You move through the day, and it follows you from room to room. The body feels heavier, the numbness deepens, and the mind quietly concludes that this is just who you are now. Carl Jung would invite you to pause here. He would say, "This is not the whole of you speaking. This is the shadow at work. The shadow is not evil. It is simply the collection of parts you were not allowed to show, or that you learned to fear in yourself. Anger that had no safe place, tears that were called dramatic, needs that were labeled selfish. All of this gets pushed down into the quiet basement of the psyche. When these exiled parts cannot come to you directly, they return in distorted ways. Jung called this projection. Instead of feeling a living grief, you hear the flat sentence, "Nothing matters." Instead of honoring your sensitivity, you hear, "I'm just weak, I'm just broken." The old judgments that once came from outside now rise up from inside your own mind and turn against you. So when you tell yourself you are lazy, hopeless, or empty, you are often repeating words that were never truly yours. A shadowed part has swallowed years of criticism and now speaks with that same tone. This inner voice does not only comment on your state, it deepens it. Each harsh sentence adds weight to the chest, convincing the heart that there is no safe reason to wake up, to care, to try again. Imagine someone who grew up being called too sensitive. Every time they cried, they were mocked. Eventually, they learned to push their feelings far away, into the shadow. As an adult, they notice only numbness. They scold themselves for not feeling anything, not realizing that the numbness is a protective shell built over a very tender core. The problem is not the sensitivity. The problem is the attack on it. You are allowed to question this attack. You do not need to believe every thought that appears in your mind, especially the ones that sound like old accusations. Many of them are echoes, not present moment truth. They are weather passing through, not the sky itself. Over the next 7 nights, we are going to spend some time with these echoes. We are going to practice talking to yourself in a way that does not feed the shadow's attacks, but slowly brings these rejected parts back into warmth. And the first step is not forcing yourself to be positive. The first step is learning a different kind of sentence altogether, one that your tired heart can actually receive without shutting down. So before we begin the 7 nights, we are going to give your mind a very simple map, not a textbook, not a theory exam, just 3 gentle figures you can picture when you talk to yourself in the quiet before sleep. You do not need to be a Jungian scholar for this. You are allowed to forget every technical term you have ever heard. What matters is that wherever you are, you have a few images that help you notice who is speaking inside and who is being silenced when your heart feels this tired. The first figure is the shadow. In Jung's language, this is not evil, and it is not a verdict on your character. It is simply the part of you that had to go underground, the anger you were not allowed to show, the grief you were told to hide, the neediness that made other people uncomfortable, the sharp sensitivity that heard every tone and saw every flinch. All of that weight has to live somewhere, and the shadow carries it. When the shadow is holding the microphone, your inner sentences turn harsh. I am broken. I am lazy. I do not care about anything. Cognitive psychology would call this negative self-talk. Jung would say the shadow is projecting its pain onto you. Either way, the result is the same. More numbness, more collapse, less energy to move even a finger. The second figure is the inner child. This is not a photograph of you at age 6. It is the living, feeling core in you that still longs for safety, for someone to understand, for a little play, for unconditional acceptance. This is the part that startles at raised voices, the part that brightens at small kindness, the part that wants to curl up and be held when the day has been too long. When your heart is tired, the inner child often disappears from view. It goes quiet, or numb, or pretends not to care. It hides behind sarcasm. It shrugs and says, "Whatever." But underneath, it is still listening for any sign that someone might finally speak to it gently. The third figure is what Jung called the self, with a capital S. This is the deeper organizing center of your psyche. Not a role, not a mood, not the anxious commentator in your head. The self is the wise, quiet, observing presence that can notice your thoughts without drowning in them. It is larger than your current exhaustion. It is the part of you that can say, "There is numbness here," instead of, "I am nothing but this numbness." When your heart is tired, the shadow often speaks the loudest. The inner child hides. The self feels far away, almost unreal, as if it belongs to some other, stronger person. We are going to explore what happens when, for a few minutes each night, you gently change who is holding the microphone inside. The goal is not to banish the shadow or force the child to dance or suddenly feel spiritual. For these 7 nights, you are allowed to pretend at first, to imagine these figures as if you were telling yourself a story. That is enough. Jung believed that when you speak honestly to your inner figures, even in imagination, the unconscious begins to answer back in dreams, in tiny shifts of motivation, in a softening around the edges of your day. So tonight, and each night that follows, let yourself settle in with this simple map: shadow, inner child, self. You do not need to get it right. You only need to be willing to speak differently to your own tired heart. And on the first night, we will begin in the most direct way possible, by talking to your heart as if it were a small, exhausted child you quietly care about, and seeing what, if anything, stirs in the silence that follows. So we begin in the place where your tired heart already goes every day, not in a journal, not in a bright, motivated morning, in the quiet just before sleep, when the weight of the day has finally loosened its grip, but tomorrow has not yet arrived. There is a particular texture to that hour. The room is dim, the phone light fades, the body sinks a little deeper into the mattress. Your mind is softer around the edges, not fully awake, not yet gone. Thoughts drift in slower loops. The usual armor you wear in daylight does not fit as tightly here. Jung paid very close attention to this threshold. To him, dreams and the sleep state were not random noise. They were doorways into the unconscious, the deeper layers of you that speak in images, in small flashes of feeling, in symbols that do not always make sense to the rational mind. When your outer life is numb, this inner life is often still moving quietly underneath. Wherever you are, the minutes before you drift off are like standing in the doorway of that inner room. You are not trying to break the door down. You are simply leaning against the frame, speaking a little more gently than you did during the day. The sentences you offer here are like seeds dropped into softer soil. The defenses of the day are lower. The heart can sometimes hear more clearly. The goal is not to force certain dreams or control what rises from the depths. Jung did not treat the unconscious like a machine to be programmed. Instead, he treated it as a partner. You are not commanding it. You are offering it a different tone, a different invitation than the usual stream of self-criticism, replayed arguments, and quiet despair. You do not need to remember your dreams. You do not need to analyze symbols in the morning or decode every scene. Simply changing how you talk to yourself as you lie there can begin to shift the inner climate. Sleep itself responds to this. Studies show that even small rituals of compassionate self-talk before bed can ease emotional exhaustion and help the nervous system settle. Right now, your tired heart may have its own nighttime rituals, scrolling until you feel numb, replaying the worst moments of the day, silently dreading the next morning while your body tightens under the blanket. We are going to gently replace that pattern with a few simple, repeatable lines. Nothing dramatic, just a different kind of whisper at the edge of consciousness. You are allowed to come to bed exactly as you are, tired, detached, angry, hopeless, or beyond caring. You do not need to feel spiritual, peaceful, or ready. You are not being asked to perform calmness. You are only being invited to experiment with a new way of speaking, in a moment that was already happening anyway. On night 1, we are going to spend some time with the simplest possible beginning. You will not be asked to believe anything new. You will only be asked to try one different sentence, spoken softly to your own heart, even if you feel nothing at all when you say it. So before we begin that first night, we are going to spend some time with your expectations. There is probably a quiet part of you already bracing, wondering if this will be one more thing you start and then drift away from, one more practice you cannot feel, cannot sustain, cannot care about for long. That part has evidence. It remembers every meditation you meant to keep up with, every journal left half filled, every late night promise to change that dissolved by morning numbness. We are not going to argue with that memory. We are simply going to tell it the truth about what these 7 nights are and what they are not. This is not a challenge, not a test of willpower, not a demand that you prove anything to yourself or to anyone else. The goal is not to impress some inner judge with how consistent or spiritual you can be. The goal is not dramatic transformation on command. This is a quiet experiment in how you speak to yourself when the lights are low and the day is already over. In 7 nights, your entire life will not rearrange itself. Old patterns will not vanish. Long-standing weight in the mind and body will not suddenly evaporate, but certain inner currents can begin to shift. Dreams can become a little more vivid or a little more honest. Tiny impulses to care for yourself, to drink some water, to open a window, can appear where before there was only frozen air. You may notice one small moment in the day when you feel slightly less made of stone. So we are going to define doing this in the smallest possible way. Remembering one sentence from the script as you fall asleep counts. Noticing that you had a different kind of dream counts. Feeling 1% less cruel toward yourself for a breath or two counts. Even realizing just how harsh the old inner voice has been without changing it yet already counts. Wherever you are, that is enough material for this experiment. You are allowed to forget a night. You are allowed to feel completely numb while you listen. You are allowed to fall asleep halfway through a sentence. You do not need to stay perfectly focused. You do not need to feel moved. If there is even a small intention to show up again, to let these words brush against your attention, the practice is still happening. You are also allowed to come to these nights with zero hope. Jung knew that the unconscious does not require your belief to keep working. You do not need to convince yourself that this will help. You do not need to manufacture faith. The unconscious responds slowly and indirectly. It listens in images and symbols, in dreams and body sensations. We are not demanding instant flowers. We are planting seeds at the edge of sleep and letting them settle in for 7 nights. Your only task is to keep planting as gently as you can. In the next section, I will give you the exact words for night 1, written so that even a very tired heart can hear them, without pressure, without demand, and simply see what begins to stir. Tonight we begin with the smallest possible step, not healing, not transformation, just a different way of being with your own tired heart for a few quiet minutes before sleep. Wherever you are, imagine that you have already turned toward the night. You are lying in bed. The lights are low or off. The phone is set aside if that is possible. Your body is in whatever position it always finds. Numb, restless, heavy. Maybe there is a buzzing mind on top of an empty chest. You do not need to change any of this. You are allowed to arrive exactly as you are. We are going to spend some time with one simple sentence. It is the core of night 1. You can say it out loud in a whisper, or only in the mind. Heart, I see that you are tired. You do not have to wake up tonight. I am just here with you. Let the words move slowly, almost as if you were talking to a small, exhausted child, or an animal that has been overworked for years. This sentence matters because it names reality without trying to rescue it. Most of your inner talk has probably been some version of wake up, care more, try harder. Jung would call that the conscious ego demanding performance, while the unconscious shuts down for protection. Tonight, the goal is not to push. The goal is simply to let your heart know that it is not being forced to perform on command. If it feels right, you can add a second line. You have been working so hard for so long. If you are done for now, I will not punish you for that. Again, slowly, gently, as if you were speaking to someone who has carried too much weight for too many years. You are not asking it to get up. You are letting it lie down without threat. Repeat these lines a few times, with pauses in between. Notice what happens in the body as you do. Maybe there is resistance. Maybe there is numbness. Maybe there is the faintest softening in the throat or chest. You do not need to judge any of it. You are allowed to simply notice. Like Marcus Aurelius, noting his own heaviness on a difficult night, the shadow may interrupt. This is stupid. This won't help. Nothing changes. When that comes, you can answer very quietly. You are allowed to think that. I am still going to say this. No argument, no debate, just a gentle boundary around this new kind of attention. If you feel nothing, or even feel worse for a while, that does not mean it is not working. A heart that has been punished for being tired does not trust kind words immediately. The unconscious listens from a distance at first. As you drift toward sleep, keep these lines near the edge of your breathing. The words may blur, but the tone remains. Your unconscious will begin to register that something in you is staying near without demand. On night 2, we are going to build on this and see what happens when the tired heart is invited, very softly, to answer back. So after that first night, after even a few minutes of this non-demanding acknowledgement, something in you may begin to stir, not loudly, not dramatically, more like a small light turning on in a distant room of the house. Jung would say that when consciousness softens its grip, the unconscious often answers in images. The answer is quiet at first. It arrives where you are least offended, in dreams, in small shifts in the weight of your own body, in the way your eyes feel when you wake. You do not need to go looking for it. You are allowed to simply notice what comes. On the morning after night 1, your dreams may feel a little closer to the surface. Scenes might be more vivid, colors slightly sharper, as if the mind has decided to speak in clearer pictures. You might see tired or lost children wandering through strange streets, animals watching you from the edges, or neglected rooms, locked doors, basements full of boxes. These are common ways the inner child and the shadow show themselves, not as threats, but as messengers who have finally been given a bit of your attention. You may also notice your body changing its tone. Sleep might be a fraction deeper. You might fall back into it more easily after waking in the night. Or the next day, tears may sit closer to the surface, arriving without a clear reason. There can be a gentle heaviness that feels different from numbness, more like real fatigue, finally allowed to settle in your muscles. For some people, the first response is not softness but irritation. You may wake feeling emotionally raw, thin-skinned, or slightly angry, as if something under the glass of numbness has been touched. This is not a setback. This is contact. The parts that have been exiled often protest when they first realize they are being seen. Wherever you are on that first morning, the goal is not to interpret everything. You do not need to decode symbols or search for hidden lessons. You are allowed to let your dreams be strange and incomplete, trusting that the deeper self understands this language, even when your waking mind does not. If you like, you can jot down a single sentence. I had a dream about a locked room. I felt like crying for no reason. My sleep felt heavier, not as homework, as a tiny gesture of care toward the unconscious that says, I am paying a little more attention now, because on night 2, we are going to spend some time with the voice that usually rushes in to attack these tender movements. The shadow's harsh commentary, the inner critic that calls your tired heart weak, will be offered a different role, so it does not have to keep guarding you by wounding you. So on night 2, wherever you are, we are going to spend some time with that voice, the one that rushes in as soon as you try anything gentle, the one that says, "This is pointless, nothing is changing, why are you even bothering?" By the second night, that voice is often louder. It mocks the small ritual. It points to the numbness and the weight in your chest as proof that these words do not work. This is not a sign that you are doing it wrong. This is a sign that another layer of the psyche is waking up and coming closer to your attention. Jung would have called this the shadow, not evil, not an enemy, a part of the mind that learned, often very early, to protect you by attacking you first, so no one else could hurt you as badly. It studies your tired heart. It keeps a list of every time you were disappointed. It believes that if it can make you care less, you will be safer. So tonight, as you lie in bed and let yourself settle in, we are going to explore a different way of meeting it. You can begin, if you like, by repeating the sentence from night 1 to your tired heart. Then, when that critical, hopeless voice appears, you turn toward it and say, slowly, inside your own mind, "To the part of me that says this is pointless, I see you too. You have been trying to protect me for a long time. Feel how unusual that is. You are not arguing. You are not trying to silence it. You are simply naming what it is doing, and you are acknowledging the strange kind of care inside its harshness. This already changes the relationship, even if the words feel thin at first." Then you add the second line. You do not need to disappear, but tonight, you do not need to be in charge. You are allowed to rest as well. Say it slowly, almost like you are speaking to a guard who has been standing at the door of your life for years without a break. In Jungian terms, you are creating a triangle of awareness. There is the tired heart, there is the shadow voice, and there is the one who is speaking to both of them. This third position, the quiet witness, is the beginning of what Jung called the self. The goal is not to win. The goal is to stay with this calmer center for a few breaths longer than you usually can. It is very common for the shadow to answer back with more criticism at first. It may say that these sentences are fake, that you are wasting time, that nothing in your body is changing. You do not need to defeat it. You do not need to prove anything. You are allowed to keep offering the same steady tone, the same words, like a soft repetition that the nervous system can slowly learn to trust. Over several nights, this gentle invitation often takes some of the weight out of the shadow's attacks. When it is no longer forced to drive the whole mind, another figure has room to appear, the younger part of you that the shadow has been guarding so fiercely, the inner child whose needs were pushed aside so you could survive. As we move into night 3, we will begin to meet that child directly. For now, it is enough to know that every time you tell the shadow, it is allowed to rest. You are quietly clearing a path for that smaller, softer voice to come forward at last. When you speak to the shadow this way for even 2 nights, something almost imperceptible can begin to move. Not a grand awakening, more like the first tiny cracks in a sheet of ice that has covered your days for a long time. You may notice, wherever you are, that the next morning has a slightly different texture. The numbness is still there. The weight in the chest, the tired mind, the heavy body are still real. And yet, somewhere in the background, a small, almost fragile impulse appears. Open the window, not clean the whole room, just feel a bit of air. Later, There might be another one. Wash one dish. Not all of them stacked by the sink, accusing you. Just one. Or answer one message, even if 10 others stay untouched. Or step outside for 3 minutes, not for a walk with purpose, but simply to see the light. These are not heroic acts. They are micro-motivations, brief sparks of care testing the air. From a Jungian view, these tiny movements are often the first signs of thawing. The inner child, long hidden behind the shadow, is stretching a hand out to see if it is finally safe. Safe to reach toward life without being shamed. Safe to want something without immediately being overburdened with demands. This is where your softer inner voice matters. Before, the voice might have said, "You are useless for staying in bed. Look at everything you are not doing." Now, after a couple of nights of speaking differently, it may sound more like, "You are very tired. You are allowed to lie here. If you can, let's sit up for 2 minutes and see how that feels." Same situation, same bed, but a completely different climate inside. You do not need to obey every impulse. The goal is not to turn each micro-motivation into a task list. In fact, you do not need to move at all for this to be meaningful. What matters is that when the thought arises, maybe drink a glass of water, you notice it, and you do not crush it with immediate self-attack. Jung would say that the deeper self often guides us through small, symbolic movements rather than grand gestures. A glass of water can be a quiet act of alignment between mind and body. A short shower can be a wordless prayer for renewal. Opening the curtains can be a way of saying, "Some part of me is still willing to meet the day, even if you go back to bed right after." We are going to spend some time with this idea that these small impulses are messages from the part of you that has not entirely given up. It may feel far away. It may feel almost theoretical. But each gentle suggestion, breathe, sit up, look outside, is that hidden part tapping softly on the door. As we move into night 3, we are going to explore this even more directly. We will speak not only to the shadow, but to that small, waiting child within it, and offer words it may never have clearly heard before. So tonight, wherever you are, let yourself settle in again. Feel the weight of the blanket, the tired rhythm of your breathing, the small sounds in the room. We are going to spend some time with a part of you that has been quiet for a very long time. As you lie here, imagine that somewhere inside your chest or behind your ribs, there is a small figure. It might look like a child. It might be only a curled up feeling or a dim outline. This is the part of you that once cared very much. The one who reached, who asked, who hoped, and at some point, after too many shocks, it stopped. For many people, this inner child is not bright or eager. It is withdrawn. It has learned that reaching out can mean more criticism, more responsibility, more disappointment. You carry memories of being told to toughen up, to stop needing so much, to handle things alone. Over time, the mind protects itself. It lets this child go to sleep inside the numbness, so the pain is not constant. So if, as you picture this, you sense anger or distrust, that is allowed. If you sense nothing at all, only blankness, that is allowed too. Jung would say that this is not a defect in you. It is the unconscious guarding something precious, keeping it out of reach until there is enough safety. Tonight, we are not going to pry that door open. The goal is not to wake this child up by force. Instead, we are going to speak in a way that removes pressure and blame, a way this part of you may never have heard. Quietly, in your own mind, offer the first sentence. To the part of me that stopped reaching, I understand why you gave up. You were not wrong for doing that. Let the words move through your body, even if they feel strange. You do not need to believe them yet. You are allowed to simply let them sit there. Then add the second line. You do not have to wake up tonight. I only want you to know that if you ever want to move, even a little, I will try not to rush you or pile more weight on you. Notice how different this is from the usual inner voice that demands, that pushes, that calls you lazy or broken. These sentences are a small act of Jungian self-conversation. They tell the inner child, you are seen, and you are not being asked to perform. No task, no test, just acknowledgement. As you rest with these words, notice any image or sensation that arises. Maybe you see a closed door. Maybe you see a small back turned away. Maybe you feel a tightness in the throat, or a heaviness behind the eyes, or nothing at all. All of this is within the range of normal. If sudden grief comes, let your attention rest with it as you would rest a hand on someone's shoulder. If there is only quiet, stay with the quiet. The inner child has its own timing. You do not need to force contact. Over the next nights, as this part of you slowly realizes it will not be pushed, something very subtle may begin. Faint signals, a dream that lingers in the morning, a small, almost fragile desire during the day. In the next section, we are going to explore how to recognize those signals so that when they appear, you are ready to answer softly back. Those faint signals can be easy to overlook, especially when you are used to a kind of steady, heavy numbness that has become the background of your days. Early thawing does not usually arrive as sudden joy, or a burst of motivation, or a clear sense of purpose. More often, it arrives as discomfort, a little more irritability than usual, a strange tightness in the chest, a wave of sadness that comes out of nowhere and does not match what is happening around you. Not just a bad day, not just a passing mood, more like the ice around the heart beginning to crack and the first cold water seeping through. You might find yourself crying at something small, a line in a song, a scene in a film you have watched before, a stranger holding a door a little longer than they needed to. You might feel suddenly touched and then confused because you had almost forgotten that your body could still respond like that. The mind may rush in and say, "This is too much. What is wrong with me?" But from a Jungian view, this is often what right beginning looks like. Old memories may feel heavier, more vivid, as if someone quietly turned up the color and the volume. A childhood room, a face you have not thought of in years, the weight of something you went through and never really named. Jung would say the unconscious is sending material up, not to punish you, but to ask for attention. The tired heart is no longer completely shut. It is testing the air. If numbness has been your protection, these first feelings can seem unwelcome, overwhelming, even dangerous. You are allowed to step back. You are allowed to take it slowly. The goal is not to drown in everything that was frozen. The goal is simply to notice that the ice is not as solid as it used to be. We are going to spend some time with your inner child here. As that younger part feels even slightly safer, it may send more feeling to the surface, like a child edging closer to a doorway, watching to see if the room is kind. As the deeper self is invited in by the words you speak at night, it may gently illuminate what has been ignored, the corners you learned not to look at. When these moments appear, you are allowed to answer them in the same tone you use before sleep. Of course, this is a lot. You are allowed to feel this, and you do not need to fix it right now. Wherever you are, you can simply place a quiet hand on your own chest, or even just in your imagination, and say, "I see that this hurts." Sometimes the sign is even smaller. You notice, "I care a tiny bit that I do not care." A thin thread of concern about your own state returns to awareness. That question, whispered inside, is itself thawing. It means some part of you still wants to live, not just endure. And if you still feel mostly numb, it does not mean nothing is happening. Many processes begin deep below conscious feeling, like roots moving under frozen ground. Night after night, as you speak differently to yourself, the unconscious listens. It rearranges itself in the dark, and only later do the first shoots appear. In Night 4, we are going to explore how to meet whatever begins to surface with a different presence, a wiser, steadier self that can stand beside the child and the pain so that you do not have to hold all of this alone. Tonight, we are going to explore that presence more directly. By Night 4, you have already been practicing 3 roles inside you: the tired heart that carries so much weight, the shadow that holds your anger, your numbness, the parts you were taught to hide, the inner child that still curls in on itself when the world feels too loud. Now, wherever you are, we are going to spend some time with a 4th presence. Jung called it the self, not your mood, not your thoughts, not your pain. The self is the part of you that can notice all of these inner figures without becoming any one of them completely. The way a quiet friend might sit beside a stormy sea and simply watch the waves rise and fall. You do not need to understand this idea perfectly. You do not need to agree with any big theory. Think of it as an experiment in how you speak to your own mind. Tonight, before sleep, you are going to offer the self a simple invitation and then let the unconscious do whatever it will do with those words. The first sentence for Night 4 is this: if there is a wiser part of me, even if I cannot feel it, you are invited to sit with me tonight as I sleep. Not a demand, not a command, just an open door in the middle of your tired thoughts. The second line is this: you do not need to fix anything. Just stay near my tired heart, my angry parts, and my hidden child, and hold us together. These words matter because they release the self from the pressure to repair you on the spot. The goal is not to wake up transformed. The goal is to let a different kind of companionship take shape in the dark. When you say these lines, let yourself settle in a little more. You are allowed to place a hand on your chest or on your abdomen and feel the weight of your own palm. Not to create a special feeling, simply to mark the intention. I am inviting a larger awareness to sit beside everything that hurts and everything that feels empty. You do not need to believe in this self. You do not need to feel any presence at all. Jung believed that the unconscious often responds to sincere invitation, even when the conscious mind feels nothing, like soil, quietly taking in water, while the surface still looks dry. For him, the self was an organizing center that naturally seeks wholeness. By naming it and inviting it, you give that tendency a clearer path to move through dreams, through small shifts in how your thoughts sound, through tiny moments of unexpected care for your own body. Over the coming days, you may notice a subtle change, a slightly stronger sense that you can watch your thoughts and feelings instead of drowning in them. In Night 5, we will deepen this relationship and practice what it means to live with this quiet inner companion during the day, as well as in the dark. As this quiet inner companion becomes more familiar, something subtle begins to change in how you meet your own numbness. There's a difference between being numb and noticing that you are numb. One is a total fog. The other contains a small, clear space. That tiny observing space is already the beginning of the self's perspective. When you are fused with numbness, it feels like the entire truth of who you are. I am empty. I do not care. Nothing matters. The sky of your mind seems covered in one heavy gray sheet. But as the self comes a little closer, numbness is no longer the whole sky. It becomes a weather pattern, a band of clouds moving through a larger, quiet awareness that can say, "This is here, and it is not all of me." We are going to spend some time with how that sounds in ordinary thoughts. You catch the sentence, "Nothing matters." Instead of swallowing it as absolute, you add a few simple words. "Part of me feels that way right now." The thought is no longer a verdict. It becomes a passing state, a wave in the body, a mood that your attention can notice, name, and gently hold. Another evening, you hear, "I am pointless." You pause, just for a breath. You are allowed to answer, "Something in me feels pointless and very tired. I see that." In that small shift, you are not arguing with the pain. You are not forcing positivity. You are creating a wider room inside, where the numb part can sit without being the only one in charge. The goal is not to talk your numbness out of existing. Jung would say that this tired heart is a message from the unconscious, not an enemy to be silenced. So you speak to it as you might to a worn-out child. Of course you feel that nothing matters. You have been disappointed so many times. Of course you are shutting down. Your mind and body are trying to protect you. This is individuation in a very quiet form, becoming more whole, not by exiling apathy and exhaustion, but by including them, by letting them have a voice in front of the self, instead of letting them drive the entire life from the shadows. Wherever you are, you do not need to hold this self-perspective all day. Even a few moments of noticing, "Something in me feels empty," are already meaningful practice. Each of these moments continues the invitation from night 4. You are saying to the self during the day, "Stay with me here too, not just at night." In night 5, we are going to explore words that help your tired heart trust that it is not being abandoned again, but is slowly joining a small inner circle of steady care. In night 5, we are going to spend some time with a quieter layer of fear, not the fear that nothing will ever change, the fear that if anything does change, if the numbness lifts even a little, you will be taken advantage of again by your own habits. A deeply tired heart often knows this pattern too well. The moment there is a small flicker of energy, old reflexes rush in. You say yes when you mean no. You stay awake when your body is begging to lie down. You turn every drop of life back into overgiving, overworking, pretending you are fine. The heart learns that any sign of life will be seized and spent. No wonder it hides. Jung would say this is not a moral weakness. It is a message from the unconscious. Your inner life has watched how you treat your own energy, how you treat your own care. It has drawn a simple conclusion. It is not safe to wake up. Tonight, wherever you are, we are going to explore a different message. Before sleep, let yourself settle in. Feel the weight of your body on the bed, or wherever you are resting. You do not need to force anything to happen. You are allowed to simply listen inside. And then, very quietly, you can offer this first sentence. Heart, if you ever begin to wake up again, I will try not to use you the way I used to. Say it slowly. Say it as many times as feels right. This is a new kind of inner contract, not the old unspoken bargain. If you give me energy, I will spend all of it on survival and approval, but a revised agreement, written in the language of protection. Heart, you are not just a resource. You are a living center I am learning to guard. Then add the second line. You are allowed to come back slowly, in small pieces. I will do my best to protect your pace, not just demand your performance. These words matter. Studies in psychology keep finding that self-compassionate talk softens exhaustion. Jung saw the same truth in another way. When you change how you speak to the inner figures, the relationship between consciousness and the unconscious begins to shift. You do not need to keep this promise perfectly. The goal is not to become some ideal caretaker overnight. The goal is a direction, a little more protection of the heart, a little less exploitation of its energy. Even catching yourself once tomorrow, pausing before you override your tiredness, is part of the new contract. As you repeat these lines over the next nights, something in the heart may start to test them. First with very faint signals, a small pull toward rest, a quiet curiosity, not just what it can endure, but what it actually wants. In the next sections, we will stay close to those signals and help you listen without rushing them into another performance. Night 1 is not about being brave. Night 1 is not about being inspired. Night 1 is about telling the truth about how tired your heart really is, and then letting that truth sit in the quiet, without rushing to decorate it. For these 7 nights, we are going to treat this as an experiment, not a new identity, not a lifelong promise. Wherever you are in your life, you are allowed to say, for 1 week, I will speak to myself differently before sleep, and then I will see what happens. The goal is not to become a new person by morning. The goal is to open a small door. For many people, that door opens on a room that feels empty. There is numbness. There is a heaviness that makes even simple care feel distant. You notice yourself not wanting to try, not wanting to answer messages, not wanting to plan anything at all. You move through the day as if wrapped in a thin layer of glass, present and yet strangely untouched. Most of us were taught to treat this state as proof that something essential is missing in us, as laziness, as ingratitude, as weakness. But Jung would call this a message from the unconscious, a way your deeper life protects itself. When the weight has been too much for too long, your mind and body are turning the volume down so you can keep going at all. So tonight, we are going to spend some time with that tiredness without arguing with it. Before sleep, wherever you are, let yourself settle in a little more comfortably. You do not need to sit perfectly. You do not need to feel calm. You are allowed to simply lie there as you are and let these words pass slowly through your attention. Here is the Night 1 script. You can whisper it, speak it in your mind, or read it from a page. I see how tired you are. I see how long you have been carrying this weight. You do not need to impress anyone tonight. You do not need to care more than you honestly care. A part of you feels numb, and that is allowed. A part of you does not want to try, and I will not push it right now. I am only here to notice you. I will stay with you, even if you feel nothing. That is all for this first night. You do not need to believe these sentences. You do not need to feel moved by them. You do not need to notice any change at all. The practice is only to let the words exist between you and your own heart, like a small lamp left on in a dark room. If you repeat them gently, night after night, the unconscious begins to register a new tone. In the next section, we will listen for the very first, almost invisible responses to that lamp being lit. Tonight, we are going to begin with the simplest possible task. Not healing, not understanding everything, just learning how not to argue with the fact that you are tired. Wherever you are, let yourself settle in a little more. Feel the weight of your body on the bed or the chair. Let your jaw loosen a fraction. Take a slow breath in through the nose and let it fall out through the mouth. Once more, gently in and quietly out. One last time, in and out. There's nothing to perform here. There's nothing to achieve tonight. You do not need to make this a deep experience. You do not need to feel anything special. You are allowed to simply listen and let the words pass through your mind like a quiet current. Inside, say to yourself, slowly, Wherever you are allowed to be this tired. Pause for a breath. Notice any part of you that resists that sentence. Then repeat. Wherever you are allowed to be this tired. Let the words land in your chest, even if they feel strange. Now, I will not argue with my exhaustion tonight. Let the line be clear and simple. I will not argue with my exhaustion tonight. I see how tired I am. I will not call it weakness. I will not call it laziness. I will simply admit, I am tired. Jung would say that when the heart feels this level of exhaustion, something deeper is speaking, not to punish you, but to get your attention. So you might add, if my heart is this tired, something in me is asking to be heard, not punished. Say it once more, very gently. Something in me is asking to be heard, not punished. We are going to spend some time with that part, without pressing it for answers. You can say, tired part of me, you are allowed to be here. You do not need to explain yourself tonight. You do not need to move. I am only noticing that you exist. This is not positive thinking. This is you refusing to deepen the wound with more inner attack. Notice if the mind tries to argue. You're overreacting. Other people have it worse. When that comes, answer with one simple phrase. I hear that thought, and I'm still allowed to be this tired. Let that be your quiet boundary. As the body settles, offer one last invitation to the unconscious. If there is anything I need to know, you may show me in dreams, in your own time. I will not chase you. I will not force you. I will simply be here, resting, while you begin to speak. Let the night hold the rest. Tomorrow, we will listen for what, if anything, has shifted in the faintest edges of your attention. So when you wake after this first night, do not be surprised if everything looks almost exactly the same. The same room, the same weight in the chest, the same tired reluctance to care about anything at all. This does not mean nothing is happening. In Jung's language, the unconscious often moves like deep water underground, quietly changing the landscape long before the surface looks different. We are going to spend some time with what you might notice, even if your first impulse is to say, nothing, I feel nothing. You do not need to force insight. You do not need to sit and analyze your dreams with a magnifying glass. Wherever you are, the invitation is much smaller than that. Just a slight softening of attention toward the edges of your own experience. Perhaps, as you move through the morning, the inner critic still speaks. It still calls you names. It still tells the story that you are too much or not enough. But there is one sentence that lands with a little less sting. One insult that feels slightly thinner, less solid. That almost invisible gap between the voice and your body's reaction is a sign. The numbness is not gone, but something in you did not fully agree. Or there is a moment, maybe while you wash your face or make tea, when you notice an unexpected tenderness toward yourself. It might be as small as the way your hand rests on your own shoulder for half a second longer. It might be a quiet thought. You're tired. Of course you're tired. That is not sentimentality. That is the unconscious answering back, testing whether it is allowed to speak with kindness. You may also feel a tiny urge to do one small thing that yesterday felt impossible. Not a grand change, not a new life, just opening a window for a breath of cold air, replying to one message, drinking half a glass of water. The goal is not to suddenly become energized. The goal is simply to notice that some part of you still wants to move, even inside the heaviness. When it comes to dreams, you are allowed to be simple. You do not need to interpret symbols or decode meanings. Just notice if the tone is different. Are the colors a little less gray? Is there more space or more quiet? Or perhaps a new figure at the edge of the scene? Jung would say, pay attention, but do not grab. Let the dream stay a mystery that slowly unfolds. Think of night 1 as ceasing an inner war. You laid down weapons for a few hours. Tonight, on night 2, we are going to explore what has been on the other side of that war all along, the shadow that has been attacking you from within, the part that writes the harsh sentences, the part that believes they are true. Stay with me, because soon you will begin to see its face. Tonight we are going to spend some time with another familiar presence in your mind, the one that shrugs, the one that whispers, or sometimes spits, I don't care. What's the point? Nothing matters. Not just once in a while, but as a kind of background weather, a gray fog that settles over almost everything. These sentences can feel very convincing. They have a certain heavy logic to them, especially when your body is tired and your heart has been carrying too much weight for too long. You look at the day ahead and the voice says, why bother? You think of reaching out to someone and it says, they don't need you. You imagine trying again and it says, it won't change anything. It sounds so final, so sure. Through Jung's eyes, this is not simply your true self speaking. This is a shadowed part, a pattern that formed to protect you. When disappointment came too often, when caring ended in hurt, your mind learned a quiet trick. If nothing matters, then nothing can wound you. If you do not care, then no one can drop you, ignore you, or break what is precious inside. In that sense, this voice is strangely loyal. It is trying to spare you pain. It is like a guard dog that barks at every visitor, even the kind ones, because a long time ago someone slammed the door in your face. Jung would say, this is a piece of the psyche that has gone into the dark, carrying your fear of caring, your fear of hope, your fear of wanting anything at all. There is also something else here, a tired heart that is real, a nervous system that has reached its limit, numbness that is not a moral flaw, but a sign that your inner circuits have flipped off for a while. You're allowed to honor that. You're allowed to say, of course I feel flat. Of course I'm exhausted. Your body and your heart deserve rest, not argument. So we are going to explore a gentle distinction. There is the honest tiredness that says, I need to lie down. And there is the defensive shutting down that insists, nothing matters at all. One asks for care. The other erases care altogether. You do not need to merge them into one truth. Wherever you are, let yourself settle in a little more. Notice the next time, I don't care, appears in your mind. Tonight, the goal is not to silence it or fight it. Instead, you will turn toward it and say, very simply, I hear you, and I want to know why you are so tired of caring. We will give this voice a shape. We will let it answer back. And as you do, you may begin to feel the first small cracks in the numbness and the faintest light coming through. Tonight, we are going to spend some time with that voice itself, not trying to argue with it, not trying to drown it out, simply letting it know it does not have to stand alone in the dark. You do not need to feel caring to say these words. You are allowed to feel nothing. You are allowed to feel bored, flat, even irritated. You do not need to believe in any of this. You are only lending your voice for a few minutes and letting the words pass through your mind and body. So, wherever you are, let yourself settle in a little more. Feel the weight of your tired limbs. Notice whatever numbness is here, like a layer of frost over the ground. You do not need to melt it. You are simply going to speak through it. To the part of me that says nothing matters, I will not exile you tonight. To the part of me that shrugs at everything, that whispers, why bother? I am not going to push you into a corner. I am not going to call you lazy or broken. I am going to sit beside you. even if you do not speak back. You must be so tired of being disappointed, of hoping and being let down, so tired of trying to care and watching things fall apart anyway. I understand why you shut everything off. I understand why you turned the volume down on my feelings, like a circuit breaker tripping after too much strain. Jung would say you are a piece of shadow, not a monster. A part of the psyche, carrying what the rest of me could not bear. You took the weight of all those letdowns and said, I will feel nothing instead. That was not a moral flaw. That was a kind of rough protection. To the numb part of me, the one that says, I do not care if I get better. You are allowed to be exactly as you are tonight. You do not need to move. You do not need to thaw. The goal is not to turn you into joy. The goal is only that you do not have to be alone with this task you took on. I will not exile you. I will not pretend you are not here. I will not drown you in noise or cover you with fake cheerfulness. I will remember that you appeared when things became too much, and that you have been standing guard ever since. If you ever feel safe enough to tell me what hurts beneath the numbness, I will listen. In your timing, not mine. On your terms, not from my demands. And if that day is not tonight, that is all right. I will keep making room for you, night after night, until you are ready to speak. Tomorrow, we are going to explore what it means to let this tired part rest, without forcing it away, and to let a different center of you quietly begin to watch over both of you. After a night of speaking to your numbness with that kind of respect, the inner landscape often begins to shift in ways that are easy to overlook. Not dramatic, not cinematic, more like a slight change in the tone of the room. Wherever you are in this process, you are allowed to let these changes be small. By the end of night 2, your dreams may start to carry different colors and shapes. Scenes might become more vivid, as if someone turned the contrast up just a little. You may find yourself in crowded places where no one quite hears you, or standing at the edge of a conversation that moves on without you. You might dream of locked rooms, closed doors, long hallways you cannot quite enter. The mind often paints, in images, what the heart has been living in silence. Jung would say that the unconscious is answering back, not with clear instructions, with symbols, with atmospheres, with the feeling of being ignored in a dream that echoes the way a part of you has felt inside your own life. The goal is not to solve these dreams like puzzles. The goal is not to get them right. You are allowed to simply wake up and whisper, something in me is moving. During the day, you may notice that the numb voice actually grows louder. For a while, this can be unsettling. You speak kindly to it at night, and then it protests more in the morning. Nothing matters. I do not care. Leave me alone. From a Jungian view, this is often what happens when a shadow part realizes it is finally being noticed. It steps forward. It tests you. It asks, are you really going to keep listening? You do not need to argue with it. You do not need to win. We are going to spend some time with this voice instead of pushing it back down. When it spikes, you might feel a heaviness in the chest, a familiar weight settling over your ribs. You might feel a lump in the throat when you think of answering a message, or a slight softening around the eyes when you hear a song that used to reach you more easily. These are not signs that you are losing ground. They are small indicators that your body has started to trust that it can bring more of its truth to your attention. A tiny thaw, a brief sting, a sudden wave of tired that asks you to lie down for 10 minutes. Wherever you are allowed to notice these without making a story out of them. If you remember nothing else from night 2, remember this sentence. Something in me is moving. That is enough for now. Tomorrow night, we are going to explore who might be hiding underneath this numb guardian, and you will begin to meet the quieter, younger heart it has been protecting all along. Tomorrow night, we are going to move closer to that younger heart. Tonight, we begin by admitting something that Jung understood very well. This flat, I don't care layer is rarely the whole story. It is often a lid, a cover placed over a much younger part of you that once cared so intensely it burned itself out. For Jung, the tired heart was not a defect. It was a signal. When you feel this numbness, this quiet, heavy distance from your own life, he would say that something in the unconscious has been carrying too much weight for too long. Not just a bad week, years of hoping, years of trying to be good enough, strong enough, uncomplaining enough. And somewhere under the surface, a younger piece of you finally said, I can't keep caring at this volume. You may notice resistance as you hear the phrase, inner child. It can sound sentimental, or strange, or simply not like you. That resistance is allowed. You do not need to adopt any language that feels artificial. If it helps, treat this as a metaphor only, a way of picturing a very real psychological fact. There is a softer, earlier layer of experience inside you that your numbness has been protecting. So tonight, wherever you are, let yourself settle in a little more. You are not being asked to remember specific memories or to dig through every wound. The goal is not excavation. The goal is a small, curious turning of attention toward the one who came before this exhaustion. The one who once cared so much about being loved, being chosen, being safe, that their nervous system finally shut the door. When you picture this inner child, do not force a sweet or glowing image. This is not about a perfect, smiling version of you. We are going to spend some time with a smaller figure who might be tired, guarded, even a little suspicious. Perhaps they sit at the edge of a room, watching others get what they never asked for. Perhaps they have their arms crossed, not in anger, but in quiet disappointment. At some point, this part of you stopped asking for what it needed, because asking hurt too much. Jung would say that when we ignore this child, it does not disappear. It moves into the shadow. It colors the numbness. It whispers, nothing matters. When what it really means is, it was too painful to keep caring. Your negative self-talk, the harsh sentences you throw at yourself, often land directly on this hidden one. Each insult adds another layer of frost. Tonight's intention is simple, and it is enough to let this younger part know you are allowed to exist in me, even if I don't yet know how to care for you. Before you sleep, you will begin to speak these words. In the next section, we will shape the exact sentences, so your tired heart has something clear and gentle to hear in the dark. Before you sleep tonight, wherever you are allowed to imagine nothing, or to imagine a younger you, listening from far away, not clearly, not perfectly, more like a small presence at the edge of your awareness, sitting just outside the circle of light. Let yourself settle in a little more. Notice the weight of your body where it rests. Notice any numbness, any tired place in the chest that does not want to care. You do not need to force a feeling. You do not need to make this meaningful. We are going to spend some time with words that are simply allowed to land, even if they land on stone. Quietly, in your own mind, or out loud, begin here. To the younger me who stopped asking for help, I see how alone you felt and how hard you tried before you gave up. I see the nights you stayed awake, listening for footsteps that never came to your door. I see the way you rehearsed your questions, then swallowed them because you already knew the answer. Pause. Let those sentences move through your attention, slowly. This is not positive thinking. Jung would have called this a small act of active imagination, a conversation with a part of you that has been living underground. You are not trying to change that younger one. You are only turning toward them. Continue. You learned that caring hurt, that hoping hurt, that needing hurt. No wonder you shut down. No wonder your mind went quiet and your body went still. No wonder you decided it was safer not to ask, not to want, not to expect anyone to notice. These are not excuses. They are descriptions, the way Marcus Aurelius would describe his own heaviness without judgment. There is numbness. There is disappointment. There is a small heart that adapted to too much absence. When you name it like this, you stop calling it weakness. You start recognizing it as intelligence under pressure. Say to them, to the younger me, who gave up asking, I do not blame you. You were not wrong for needing more. You were not wrong for going quiet when no one answered. You were trying to survive with the tools you had. Your mind may argue. It may throw old shadow phrases at you. You were too much. You were not worth the effort. You do not need to fight those lines. Let them pass like distant trains. Bring your attention back to the child you are addressing. Gently, end here for tonight. I will not force you to trust me tonight. I only want you to know that I am finally turning toward you. You do not need to come closer. You do not need to speak. Just know that I am here now, and I am willing to learn how to care for you. Slowly. The goal is not to feel better instantly. The goal is contact. In the next section, we are going to give this younger one a place to rest inside you, so that over the coming nights their frozen weight can begin, very quietly, to thaw. When you make contact like this, something very old in you begins to stir, not loudly, not dramatically, more like a child who has been sitting in the corners for years, slowly lifting their head because, for once, the room feels a little safer. In Jung's language, this younger one is not imaginary decoration. It is the layer of you that first learned what love felt like and what it felt like to be ignored. The inner child often carries the original wounds that made your heart so tired. The repeated, stop overreacting. The quiet evenings where no one asked how you were. The chronic promises that never became reality. Those moments did not vanish. They settled into the body as weight, as numbness, as the quiet conviction that caring hurts too much. Over time, another figure formed around this child. Jung called it part of the shadow. You might know it as the numb, dismissive voice that says, I don't care. Nothing matters. Why try? This voice is not pure cruelty. It is a guard. It learned that if you stop caring first, you cannot be disappointed again. If you do not hope, hope cannot be taken from you. So the shadow stands at the door of the heart, arms folded, keeping everyone out. It keeps out new hurt, but it also keeps out warmth. It keeps out the tiny movements of life that still want to happen in you. When you only hear this guard, you may believe that apathy is who you are, rather than a role that grew around a frightened child. When the inner child is finally seen and spoken to with even a few simple words, something shifts in this arrangement. The guard is no longer the only one doing the protecting. You are there now. You are allowed to say, I see how hard you have worked to keep us from breaking. You do not need to carry this alone tonight. The shadow does not disappear, but it does not have to work as hard, and the volume of I don't care can soften from a command into background weather. As this happens, very small impulses begin to appear. Jung would see these as signals from the unconscious that contact has been made. A thought to drink a glass of water, a faint wish to open the window, the idea of changing the pillowcase before sleep. These are micro-motivations, almost invisible, easily dismissed. yet they are signs that the inner child feels slightly safer, safe enough to let your care move 1 millimeter closer to the surface. Wherever you are, you do not need to chase these impulses or turn them into grand plans. The goal is not to become endlessly energetic overnight. The goal is to notice that they are there at all, that your tired heart is not empty, only guarded. In the next section, we are going to spend some time with another inner figure Jung pointed to, the self, a deeper center that can hold both the child and the shadow without collapsing. As you meet it over the coming nights, the work of guarding will no longer rest on tired parts of you alone. So tonight, we are going to spend some time with that deeper center Jung called the self. Not a distant mystical thing, more like the quiet space in you that can notice everything your tired heart is feeling without being drowned by it. Most of us confuse this self with the ego. The ego is the part that tries to manage everything. It plans, it explains, it argues with your numbness and your exhaustion. It says, "Why are you like this?" and tightens when you cannot answer. The self is different. The self does not argue. The self can simply sit beside the weight and let it be exactly as heavy as it is. Jung saw this self as a kind of inner center, larger than your moods and older than your roles. Not a perfect version of you, not a polished mask, but the one in you who can watch thoughts pass like clouds and not run after each one. There is anger, there is emptiness, there is a small ache that still wants to care. The self can notice all of this and stay spacious. Wherever you are, let yourself settle in a little more as you hear this. You do not need to feel wise or spiritual. You do not need to believe in any theory. You are allowed to simply imagine that somewhere inside, behind the noise of the day, there is a calm listener who is not tired, not numb, and not critical. The ego hears a symptom and wants to control it. I need to fix this. I need to be different by tomorrow. The self hears the same symptom and makes room for it. Of course you are tired. Of course you went numb after so much strain. Jung would say your emptiness is a message from the unconscious, not a verdict on your worth. The self is the one who can receive that message without panic. You do not need to go searching for this self as if it were lost. Tonight, you are allowed to act as if it is already here, listening. When you speak inside, when you whisper to your own mind before sleep, imagine you are talking to that wider presence. Let your words be simple, like you are speaking to a very patient friend who has all the time in the world. The goal is not to feel anything dramatic. The goal is to let the self hold your shadow, your inner child, and your tired heart in the same gentle field of attention, so no part has to be exiled or silenced tonight. Shadow thoughts, frightened child parts, protective numbness, all sitting together in one quiet room. Over the next moments, we are going to explore how to speak to this presence directly, so that in the coming nights, it can begin to answer back in dreams, in small shifts of motivation, in a soft thawing you barely notice at first. So tonight, wherever you are, we are going to spend some time with a very simple way of speaking. It is not wise, it is not grand. It is like placing a small, steady hand on your own shoulder in the dark. You do not need to feel wise or calm to say these words. You are allowed to feel empty while you speak. You do not need to believe them. You do not need to feel anything at all. Let yourself settle in as someone who is simply repeating a gentle experiment that has been handed to you. You might begin quietly in your own mind. There is something in me that is still able to notice how tired I am. There is something in me that can see the weight on my chest, the numbness in my body, without judging it. There is something in me that can watch this exhaustion the way you might watch distant weather moving across a wide sky. This is how Marcus wrote to himself in the Meditations. Not, I am the tiredness, but there is tiredness. Not, I am broken, but there is a heaviness in the mind. Jung would call this small shift a movement toward the self, the deeper organizing center that can hold all your scattered pieces without being swallowed by them. So you say, slowly, something in me is still able to hold this. Something in me is larger than this numbness. Something in me can stay with this ache, even when I cannot care about anything else. Notice the way these words make a little space. Not a bright, happy space. Just a slight distance, like sitting back half an inch in your chair. Thoughts move, sensations rise and fall, and somewhere, quietly, there is a watcher that does not have to be swept away. Tonight, may the part of me that is watching hold the part that is numb, the part that is young, and the part that is in pain. May the part of me that can still care in tiny ways hold the part that has stopped caring. May the part of me that is quiet and patient hold the part that is restless and afraid. You are allowed to imagine this as an older presence, or as a wide, calm room inside your chest. You are allowed to imagine a circle of soft light around your bed that belongs to this deeper self. The goal is not to see anything special. The goal is simply to give your mind a new image of safety. As you come towards sleep, let your last words be very simple. Something in me is still able to hold this. I do not need to fix myself before I sleep. I only need to let this deeper part of me keep watch as I rest. As this deeper part of you keeps quiet watch, something else may begin to stir over these nights. Not a dramatic awakening, more like the smallest shift in how you speak to yourself. When the tiredness presses down, one of the first signs is almost invisible, a tiny pause before the old sentence lands. The old sentence might be, what is wrong with me? Or, I don't care about anything. And suddenly, there is half a breath in between. Half a breath where your mind does not hit you as quickly. That pause is not nothing. That pause is the self, putting one gentle hand on the brake. You may notice that in the middle of a day that feels heavy, there is a brief moment of unexpected kindness toward your own exhaustion. You catch yourself thinking, of course I'm tired, instead of, I should not be this weak. The tone inside is softer by 1 degree. Not sweet, not enthusiastic, just a little less harsh. Wherever you are, that slight softening is a real sign that something in you is beginning to care how you speak to yourself. Another subtle sign is confusion in your feelings. Part of you mutters, I don't care. And at the very same time, a quieter part whispers, I wish I cared. Two currents, moving in opposite directions. In the past, you might have collapsed into one or the other. Now they can exist side by side. Jung would say, the self is watching both states, holding them in a wider space, so your mind and body do not have to choose a single verdict. As this wider space opens, old material may rise, tears that seem to come from nowhere, irritability that does not match the moment, sudden memories that float up as you are trying to fall asleep. Most of us were taught to see these waves as proof that we are getting worse, but your numbness has been holding so much. When the self makes more room, some of what was pressed down will naturally try to move. You do not need to analyze these waves. You are allowed to simply notice that they are passing through. If tears come, if anger flares, if you remember something you thought you had buried, meet it with one simple phrase. Something in me is noticing this, and that is enough for now. Say it like you are speaking from that circle of light you imagined earlier. Say it even if you feel nothing. we are going to spend some time with that phrase over the next nights. The goal is not to turn you into a different person by force. The goal is simply to let this noticing grow strong enough that, very quietly, the deepest beliefs that keep your heart locked in exhaustion can begin to loosen, one thread at a time. Tonight, we are going to spend some time with one of those deep beliefs that keeps the threads tight, the one that sits under the numbness like a stone, the one that whispers again and again, "Nothing will ever change, so why bother?" You know that sentence. It has a particular weight. It does not arrive as drama. It arrives as something that sounds almost rational, especially after years of trying, of reaching out, of being disappointed. You have evidence. You have memories of times you hoped and nothing moved. So this belief steps in and says quietly, "Let me take it from here. I will spare you the next heartbreak." From a Jungian view, this is not just pessimism. It is a defense that formed in your psyche, like a frozen lake, forms after too many nights of cold. The tired heart has been cracked before. The unconscious learns. It decides that the safest way to care for you is to stop you from caring at all, to freeze hope before it can be broken again. Most of us were taught to see this as weakness, as proof that we are broken or lazy or ungrateful. But this conviction is not a moral defect. It is a protective construction. Your mind and body crafted it to keep you from walking back into the same fire. In that sense, it has been loyal, fiercely loyal. Tonight, wherever you are, let yourself settle in a little more and turn your attention toward this belief as if it were a person sitting across from you. Not to argue with it, not to crush it with forced positivity. The goal is not to shout over it. The goal is simply to see it clearly and to speak to it with respect. In Jung's language, this belief is a part, not the whole, a story, not the sky. It feels like a prophecy, but it is actually a script the tired heart repeats to keep you from stepping forward. Reality is larger than any single sentence in your head. Even now, while nothing will ever change, echoes, tiny shifts are happening in your dreams, in your breath, in the way your body responds when someone is kind. So the intention for night 5 is very simple. We are going to speak directly to this belief and acknowledge what it has tried to do for you. You are allowed to say, gently, "You have tried to protect me by convincing me not to hope." You do not need to believe anything different yet. You do not need to feel any spark. Just this new sentence, offered into the quiet before sleep, begins to loosen the ice. In the next night, we will explore what happens when you invite this overprotective part to stand beside you instead of in front of you, guarding the door to every possible change. Tonight, we are going to spend some time with the voice that stands in front of every door and says, "It's useless," not just doubtful, not just cautious, the part that feels old and tired and utterly convinced that nothing you do will matter. You are allowed to believe that nothing will change and still say these words. You do not need to be convinced. Wherever you are, let yourself settle in a little more comfortably. The goal is not to argue with yourself. The goal is simply to let another kind of sentence exist beside the ones you already know by heart. To the part of me that is sure it's useless to try. I know you have been watching for a long time. You have kept records of every disappointment, every failed attempt, every broken promise. You are not foolish. You are observant. You remember what my mind prefers to forget. You hold the weight of all the times hope burned and then went out. You are allowed to be here. You do not need to quiet down. You have been like a guard posted at the edge of numbness, saying, "Do not care too much. it only leads to pain. In your own way, you have tried to protect my tired heart from further harm. Jung would say you are not a defect, but a part of the psyche that learned from hard experience. A shadow archivist, a careful witness. When you repeat, "It will not work," you are not cursing me. You are reading from the files you have collected over years of strain. So tonight, I will not call you negative. I will not call you dramatic. I will simply say, I see the work you have done. I see how early you wake, how quickly you rush in whenever a new idea appears, whispering, "No, remember last time? You have carried this duty alone for so long." To this part of me, I want to say, you are allowed to rest for a moment. You do not need to stand at the door all night. My mind and body are tired, and your constant watch adds another layer of exhaustion over the quiet that is already here. I am not asking you to drop your records. I am not asking you to forget. I am only placing one more page in your hands. On that page it says, "It is possible that I do not see everything." Tonight I am not asking you to believe in change. I am only asking you to allow the possibility that you do not see everything the self can see. Tomorrow night, we will explore what happens when this watchful part lets the self walk with it, sharing the burden of looking ahead. When you let that possibility in, even a little, something almost invisible begins to happen around night 5. The numbness does not vanish. The weight in the chest is still there. But at the edges of that weight, tiny impulses start to appear. We are going to spend some time with these. Jung would see them as quiet messages from the unconscious, testing the air. Not grand visions, not a sudden plan for your whole life. More like the softest tug toward one small movement, the urge to open a window for a moment, the thought that clean sheets might feel kinder against your tired body tonight. These are micro-motivations, the smallest possible desires that rise like thin blades of grass through frozen ground. A brief wish to drink a glass of water, the idea of sending one simple message to someone you trust, a flicker of interest in washing just your face, or standing for a minute under warm water. Each one is so small that the mind is tempted to dismiss it as nothing at all. Most of us were taught to ignore these impulses unless they lead to something big, to wait until we can overhaul everything at once. But your tired heart does not work like that. When it has been hurt or overused, it will not leap. It will test. It is not announcing that it is healed. It is asking a cautious question. Is it safe to care this much? Wherever you are on night 5, you are allowed to answer that question very gently. You do not need to turn a single glass of water into a whole new routine. You do not need to take the urge to change your sheets and turn it into a spotless room. The goal is not to prove anything about your strength. The goal is only to meet one small impulse with one small action. So when the thought comes, maybe I could open the window, you simply open it for a minute. When the idea appears, I could text them thinking of you. You send exactly those words and no more. When your body whispers, "Water," you pour half a glass and drink it slowly. Then you stop. You let yourself settle in the quiet after that one act. Over these nights, such tiny responses begin to teach the deeper layers of the mind that it is possible to move without being overwhelmed. That caring a little does not drag you back into the old storms. And as this trust grows, these micro-motivations start to link together, almost on their own. In the next nights, we are going to explore how these fragile signals can deepen into a steadier, quieter form of caring, one that does not burn you out and does not demand that you become a different person overnight. As these tiny acts of care begin to link together, another truth becomes visible. There is also a part of you that has quietly stepped back from all of it. a part that has said, in its own way, I am done. Not just tired, done. Tonight, we are going to spend some time with that part. Most of us were taught to see this as the worst in us, the lazy streak, the quitter, the cold, uncaring self. But in Jung's language, this is often a protective adaptation, not a defect in your character. When caring felt like being burned over and over, some deep layer of your mind and body learned to turn the heat down. Learn to say, if we stop caring, maybe we will stop hurting. Jung would call this the shadow at work. Not evil, not monstrous. Simply the energy that went underground when the surface of your life became too harsh. The part that took all the disappointment, all the helplessness, all the unspoken grief, and carried it out of sight so you could keep moving. It looks like numbness. It feels like you genuinely do not care what happens next. Underneath, it is holding an enormous weight for you. Wherever you are allowed to recognize this without arguing with it. You do not need to pretend you care more than you do. You do not need to manufacture hope. For many people, the truest sentence right now is, a part of me has given up. Tonight, that sentence is not a problem to solve. It is a doorway. When Jung wrote about the unconscious, he did not describe it as an enemy to conquer. He described it as a living presence that speaks in symptoms, in dreams, in sudden waves of apathy or exhaustion. Your tired heart, your flat attention, the way your thoughts slide off everything you used to care about, can be understood as this kind of message. Not a verdict on your worth, a signal that some inner figure is saying, enough, I cannot keep going like this. On night 4, we are going to explore how to speak directly to that figure. The goal is not to convince it to care again. The goal is not to push or bargain or threaten yourself into motivation. Instead, you are allowed to simply listen, to let this part describe how long it has been holding the line, to let it say, I don't care, and believe that this is how it feels, without rushing to correct it. As you talk to yourself in this way, the stance of that part may not change immediately. It does not have to, but something subtle often begins, a loosening, a tiny thaw around the edges of the numbness. When a shadow is finally seen without judgment, it does not need to clamp down quite so hard. Let yourself settle in for this conversation. In the next section, we will move slowly into the exact words you can offer this part before sleep, and notice how your inner night landscape begins to answer back. Let yourself settle in for this part. Tonight, we are going to spend some time with a very specific presence inside you, the one who has quietly, or not so quietly, stopped caring. You can begin, wherever you are, by saying slowly in your mind, I see the one in me who has stopped caring. Let the words move through your body, not just your thoughts. I see the one in me who has stopped caring about getting better. I see the one in me who has stopped caring about plans, about people, about the next day. You are not calling it wrong. You are simply naming that it is here. Then, gently, you are not broken. You are tired of being hurt by caring. Let that sentence land. Short, clear, again if you need to. You are not broken. You are tired of being hurt by caring. This is description, not judgment. This is Marcus writing to himself on a winter morning, only now it is you, writing inside your own chest. We are going to explore this part as Jung would, as a figure of the psyche, not a defect. So you say, you belong to my inner world. You are part of my mind, part of my soul's way of speaking. You are allowed to be here tonight. Notice how different that is from the usual inner voice that says, there is something wrong with you for feeling this numbness and weight. Continue. You arrived for a reason. You came when caring started to cost too much. You came when my body was too tired, when my heart had been disappointed too many times. You do not need to argue with it. You do not need to push it away. The goal is not to make this part disappear. The goal is to listen. Now, address it more directly. You, the one who stopped caring, you are not all of me. You are a state moving through me. You are a season, not my whole sky. You carry information from the places I do not see in daylight. This is pure Jung, the unconscious speaking in moods instead of words. You might add, if I have called you lazy, if I have called you hopeless, I am sorry. I did not understand that you were protecting me. You turned the volume down so I could keep going. Feel how your body responds when you stop attacking this part and begin to thank it. As you move towards sleep, offer a final invitation. If you want to speak to me, you can come into my dreams. You can arrive as images, as small scenes, as subtle feelings in my chest tomorrow. There is no rush, no time limit. I will keep noticing you. Let that be enough for night 4. In the next section, we will gently widen this conversation so that this tired part does not have to carry the whole story alone. So tonight, we are going to spend some time with the part of you that froze instead of speaking. The part that did not come as a dream, or a scene, or a clear sentence, but as numbness, not just tiredness, more like a quiet sheet of ice laid over the heart. In Jung's language, this is not a defect. It is a move by the psyche to protect itself. When feelings were too intense, too contradictory, too dangerous to show, your mind and body did something very intelligent. They placed the unbearable in cold storage. They wrapped certain memories, certain longings, certain hurts in frost, so that you could keep walking through your days without shattering. Most of us were taught to see this as proof that something is wrong with us. To hear ourselves say, I don't care about anything, and to answer back with shame. But numbness is often the exact opposite of not caring. It is what appears when, at some earlier point, you cared so deeply that the weight of it became unworkable. The unconscious stepped in and turned the volume down. Jung saw this as compensation. When consciousness cannot yet bear a truth, the unconscious balances it. If your waking self was flooded with grief, the depths might send you a band of apathy. If your days were filled with relentless effort, your nights might answer with a strange inability to care, not as punishment, as a counterweight. Wherever you are allowed to notice this frozen state without attacking it. You do not need to call it laziness. You do not need to call it a moral flaw. You can simply say, as Marcus did with his own heaviness, there is numbness here. There is a heart that feels far away. Description. Instead of judgment, begins to thaw the ice by a fraction of a degree. Sometimes this freezing goes so far that you do not even care about healing. You hear words like inner work and feel nothing. You listen to this and a part of you whispers, I don't care if anything changes. Within a Jungian frame, that flatness is still meaningful. It is the psyche saying, the last time we cared, it hurt too much. So rather than asking, what is wrong with me? We are going to explore a different question. What became too painful to care about? Was it a relationship that never met you? A childhood where your needs were invisible? A season of carrying everyone else while no one noticed your tired body and your thinning patience? Let yourself settle in with that question very gently, as if you are standing at the door of a room you do not yet need to enter. The goal is not to dig or analyze tonight. The goal is only to turn your attention from self-blame toward quiet curiosity about what is being guarded by this ice. Because in the next part of this journey, we will begin to approach that guarded place more directly, and the way we approach it will change what it reveals. So tonight, we are going to spend some time with that guarded place by asking it questions very quietly, not to interrogate it, not to force it to speak, only to let it know that wherever you are inside, your attention has become a little more gentle and a little more curious. Let yourself settle in as you lie there. Feel the weight of your tired body against the bed. Notice any numbness, any blankness, any sense of I don't care, resting like a thin layer of ice over the heart. You do not need to melt it. You are allowed to simply sit beside it in the mind. Now, in that inner space, imagine turning towards the part that says, I don't care. You are not arguing with it. You are not correcting it. You are meeting it as Jung might meet a figure from a dream, with respect. And gently, you ask, inside, when did you first decide it was safer not to care? The goal is not to get a perfect answer. The goal is not to remember everything. You are only opening a door. You might receive a single image, a school hallway, a hospital room, a childhood bedroom in the dark. You might feel a sudden heaviness in the chest, or a quiet wave of tired sadness. You might hear nothing at all. We are going to explore more than one question. After a while, you can ask, on that day, what were you protecting me from? Let the words drift down like a small stone into deep water. Wait. Your mind may answer in sentences, or it may answer with a knot in the stomach, a flicker of shame on the face, a memory of someone's raised voice, or of being ignored when you were in pain. You are allowed to listen with the whole body, with the breath, with the subtle changes in mood that pass through like weather. Jung believed that the unconscious often speaks in images and in sensations long before it speaks in clear thoughts. So you do not need to chase meaning. You only need to notice what appears, and then let it be. If nothing appears, that is also an answer. Somewhere beneath the numbness, the unconscious is still listening. It may not be ready to respond in words tonight. It may prefer to answer later, in a dream, or in a small shift tomorrow, when you suddenly feel the tiniest spark of care about something you had written off. Before sleep, you can add one more question. What would make it a little safer for you, this part that does not care, to rest? Again, you are not pushing, you are inviting. The act of asking with respect is already a form of healing. As you move toward the next night of this practice, we will begin to give this part new language to lean on, so it does not have to carry the weight of I don't care alone. By the time you reach night 4, something quiet may begin to shift. Not a miracle, not a sudden rush of joy, more like the first tiny cracks in a sheet of winter ice that has been covering your chest for a long time. You might notice it as a sudden wave of sadness that seems to come from nowhere. You are lying there, speaking to the part that says, I don't care, and without warning your eyes fill, or anger surfaces, sharp and surprising, at people who hurt you, at life, even at yourself. This is not a sign that the practice is harming you. This is what happens when numbness loosens its grip, and the feelings it has been holding underwater finally find a small gap to rise through. Jung would say that the unconscious, which has been sending messages in the language of emptiness, is beginning to answer back in clearer images and moods. Your tired heart, which had to go silent for a while, tests its voice with these first sounds. Wherever you are allowed to meet these waves without analysis. You do not need to explain them. You can simply name them the way Marcus did. There is sadness, there is anger, and let yourself breathe with what appears. For some people, night 4 does not bring tears but irritation. a restless, almost itchy feeling in the mind and body. You cannot quite settle. The usual numb scrolling or drifting feels less satisfying, a little stale. This can be confusing. You may think you are getting worse, but irritation is often the first sign that the frozen surface is thinning at the edges. Numbness is heavy and still. Irritation has movement in it. It means some part of you is beginning to care, just enough to be annoyed. Alongside this, there may be a strong pull to go back to flatness, back to not feeling anything. You might hear thoughts like, "This is too much. I was better when I felt nothing." The goal is not to fight that impulse or prove it wrong. The goal is not to force yourself into warmth before you are ready. You are allowed to say to that part, "Of course you want to go back to the quiet. You kept me safe there. I will not throw you away." Wanting the old numbness does not erase a single moment of contact you have made. It only shows how faithfully your defenses have been working. You may also notice, almost like a mistake, a tiny flicker of interest. You catch yourself wondering about a book you used to like. You feel a faint urge to open the window, to change the sheets, to send one message. Then, just as quickly, you pull back and think, "No, I can't do life again." For now, you do not need to turn that flicker into action. We are going to spend some time with it as if it were a visiting guest, not a demand. You can greet it softly. "I see you." You are allowed to stop by. You do not need to stay. Over the next nights, we will explore how to host these guests of sadness, anger, and small interest without being flooded by them. The cracks in the ice are not the end of your numbness yet, but they are the beginning of a different conversation with your own heart. The cracks in the ice are not the end. They are a doorway. Tonight, we are going to explore one of the most delicate things that lives beneath that frozen surface. Jung would call it the inner child. Not as a cute slogan, not as a metaphor you repeat and forget. For him, this childlike part of you is a living psychic reality, a real configuration of feeling and memory, an instinct that continues to breathe inside your mind and body. Wherever you are, some part of you is still capable of wonder, of grief, of quiet, stubborn care. For many people, that part has gone into hiding. It retreats when caring has been punished. It retreats when your attempts to help were mocked, when your tears were called dramatic, when your questions were ignored. You carry memories of reaching out and meeting only silence. You carry the weight of times you cared deeply, and nothing changed. Over years, that small one inside learns a hard lesson. Caring is dangerous. So the inner child does what any frightened child would do. It goes to its room and closes the door. It stops bringing you its drawings. It stops telling you its dreams. The numbness you feel now is often the echo of that withdrawal, a kind of protective quiet, not proof that you are empty, but proof that something tender has gone underground to survive. If the idea of meeting this child brings resistance, that is understandable. If your first reaction is, "I don't want to go back there," that is a kind of wisdom. Many people had their caring met with disappointment, neglect, or even cruelty. The body remembers that. The heart remembers that. So of course there is fear. Of course there is a tired voice in you that says, "Please, not again." You do not need to break through that resistance. You are allowed to be cautious. Tonight is not about forcing open any doors. The goal is not to drag this child into the light or to make them hopeful on command. Jung knew that the unconscious does not respond well to pressure. It responds to sincerity, to patience, to repeated gentle invitations. So for night 5, we are going to spend some time with a different kind of intention. Before sleep, you are simply going to let this inner child know that you are willing to see them on their terms, at their pace. No demands, no questions they have to answer, no performance. You might say, quietly in your own words, "If there is a child in me who still cares, you do not need to come out tonight. You are allowed to stay hidden. I only want you to know that I am here, and I will keep coming back in this quiet way." Marcus wrote to himself as to a weary companion. Jung invited his patients to speak inwardly to these hidden figures with the same respect. Over the next minutes, we will prepare that inner room so that if the child ever chooses to visit, they will find a place that feels different from the past. Tonight, we are going to spend some time with that inner room itself, not analyzing it, not decorating it, simply opening the door a little and speaking into the quiet. If there is a child in me who still cares, you are allowed to stay hidden or come closer. You are allowed to listen from far away. You are allowed to turn your face to the wall and pretend you are not here at all. I will not drag you out. I will not demand that you be brave. Wherever you are, in whatever corner of my mind or body, you have been surviving. Let yourself settle in a little more. Feel the weight of the blankets. Feel the tired rhythm of your breathing. You do not need to answer. You do not need to cheer up. You are allowed to be exactly as you are tonight. You do not need to trust me yet. I will keep showing up, night after night, in this same tone, with this same quiet attention. Like Marcus, writing to himself on another worn-out evening, I am writing to you, the smallest one, who learned to carry too much. Maybe you have known only numbness and armor. Maybe your job has been to keep caring secretly, while the rest of me shut down. If that is true, then I honor the work you have done. You have kept some spark of care alive, even when everything felt pointless. Carl Jung would say, "You are not a mistake. You are not an inconvenience. You belong to the wholeness of who I am, even if I forgot you for a long time. You are stitched into my story, into my memories, into the way my chest tightens at certain voices and softens at others. You do not need to be healed for me to stay. You do not need to stop crying inside. The goal is not to make you perform or to turn you into a lesson. The goal is not to silence your anger or your grief. I am here to watch over you while you rest, even if that rest looks like staring at the dark. If you are frightened of me, I understand. For years, my own thoughts have spoken harshly. They blamed you for being needy. They called your feelings too much. That was shadow talking, not truth. Tonight, I am learning a different language. So here is my simple request, offered gently. If it ever feels even a little bit safe, you are allowed to visit me. Maybe in a dream that lingers when I wake. Maybe in a small feeling during the day, a sudden ache, a flicker of warmth, a memory that asks for my attention. If you come, I will try to notice. I will try to listen, and if you are not ready, that is all right. I will keep a light on in this inner room, and I will be here again tomorrow night, speaking to you in this same quiet way. During the day, that inner room does not disappear. It just speaks a different language, not in clear sentences, but in small changes of mood, in sudden waves that seem to come from nowhere and then vanish again. We are going to explore those signals slowly, because what looks like random sensitivity is often the child inside you, tugging gently at your attention, not to disturb you, to say very quietly, "This matters to me more than I can admit." You might notice it as unexpected tears that rise in your eyes over something small, a song, a scene in a show, a stranger's kindness in the middle of an ordinary errand. The mind says, "This is nothing," but the body feels a weight in the chest, a tightness in the throat, as if something very old has been touched. Or you find yourself thinking, "I am too sensitive." A comment that others would shrug off lingers in you for hours. A neutral tone sounds sharp. A small change of plan feels like a personal rejection. On the surface, it looks like overreaction. Underneath, the inner child is whispering, "This kind of moment has hurt me before." Sometimes it appears as a craving for comfort that feels almost embarrassing. You want to be held. You want soft clothes, warm food, a quiet corner where no one needs anything from you. You are tired of being the strong one. You are allowed to notice that this longing is not weakness. It is a younger part of you asking, "Is there any room for my needs today?" At other times, the signal is withdrawal. You suddenly want to leave the room, cancel the call, disappear into your phone, or go numb and blank. On the outside, you look distant. On the inside, the child is saying, "This is too much. I do not feel safe here. I need to hide." You do not need to fix the feeling when it comes. The goal is not to argue with it or explain it away. Wherever you are, you can simply pause for a moment. Let yourself settle in your own body. Place a hand gently on your heart or your belly. Feel the contact, even for 2 or 3 quiet breaths. Then, in your own mind, say a simple sentence. "I hear you. I see that this matters. You are allowed to feel this. We are going to stay here for a few breaths and not abandon you." Staying with the feeling, without rushing to solve it, is already a new pattern. Marcus would have called this a different kind of attention, a ruling center that does not run away. Over the next nights, we are going to spend some time with exactly how to speak to this child in you, so that these daytime signals become the beginning of a conversation, not another reason to shut down. Tonight, we are going to deepen that conversation, not by being wiser, not by being stronger, but by letting the smallest, most tired part of you speak without being overruled. Wherever you are, let yourself settle in a little more. Feel the weight of your body on the bed or chair. You do not need to prepare anything. You are allowed to simply listen. In your mind, gently imagine the child we spoke about before. Not an abstract idea, a real little one. Picture them sitting across from you, or if it feels safer, beside you on the bed, their legs barely reaching the edge. Notice their posture, their eyes, the way their hands fidget, or stay very still. We are going to spend some time with that image. Jung would have called this a form of active imagination, a way for the unconscious to speak in pictures instead of arguments. Your numbness, your tired heart, can take this shape for a few minutes. It makes the inner weight easier to meet. When you can see them clearly enough, ask one quiet question. What do you wish someone had cared about for you? Then stop. No explanation, no correction. Just give them your full attention and wait. Very quickly, the adult mind will want to interrupt. It will want to say, "It was not that bad," or "Other people had it worse," or "You are being dramatic." This is the old habit of shadow talk, the way you have learned to push away what feels inconvenient or embarrassing. The goal is not to argue with that habit tonight. The goal is simply to notice it arise and not obey it. Each time you feel the urge to correct, imagine Marcus reading his own words about heaviness and restlessness. He does not tell himself to toughen up. He does not call his apathy a shame. He describes and he listens. You are offering the same quiet courtesy to this child. If it helps, take a notebook or the notes app beside you. As the child speaks in your imagination, write down their words exactly as they come. Do not clean the sentences. Do not make them reasonable. If they say, "No one ever cared," write that, even if you know, as an adult, that someone tried. If they say, "I hate everyone," write that too. This might feel unfair, dramatic, childish. That is all right. You are allowed to record it anyway. You are not making a legal document. You are letting a nervous system, long ignored, finally empty itself without being cross-examined. Jung saw this kind of unedited expression as a message from the unconscious, not a verdict on reality. By holding back your impulse to explain, you begin to build inner trust. A part of you learns, slowly, when I speak, I am not silenced. Over the next night, we are going to explore how to answer this child without abandoning your own adult ground. After a few nights of this unedited speaking, something often shifts in a quiet but unmistakable way. Not a dramatic breakthrough, more like a soft ache that was hiding under the numbness beginning to make itself known. Around night 5, you may notice a strange protectiveness toward yourself. You remember something small from childhood, and instead of rolling your eyes at it, you feel a slight weight in the chest, a tenderness you cannot easily explain. You catch yourself thinking, almost with surprise, that was a lot for me back then. This is your attention beginning to turn toward the child part, not as an inconvenience, but as someone in your care. At the same time, another current often appears, irritation. You might hear yourself think, why is this part so needy, so dramatic, so tired all the time? You may feel annoyed at the tears that come, or at the images that appear in dreams. This too is part of the psyche trying to protect you. It is the same defensive voice that once kept everything pushed down so you could keep going. Most of us were taught to see that annoyance as proof that we are cold or unkind. But in Jung's language, this is only another layer of protection, a guard at the door. It says, if I mock this, I will not have to feel it fully. The goal is not to get rid of this voice. The goal is to recognize it as a tired protector that has been on duty for a very long time. When tenderness and irritation sit side by side, it can feel like you are emotionally swinging. 1 hour you feel close to this inner child, the next you want them to be quiet and disappear. Instead of reading these shifts as instability, you are allowed to see them as a sign that more of your mind is coming online. Your system is gently testing. Is it safe to feel more than numbness, more than the old quiet shutdown? Tonight, wherever you are, when you notice either feeling rise, we are going to give you one simple response. When the ache comes, you say inwardly, you are allowed to be here tonight. When the annoyance flares, you say the very same words. You are allowed to be here tonight. No debate, no cross-examination, just this brief permission. You do not need to sort out which part is right. You do not need to decide whether the child is overreacting or the guard is overprotective. For now, you are only learning to hold both, as Marcus would note his own restless moods without judgment. You are learning to name these currents and let them settle in the same inner room. Over the next nights, we are going to spend some time with a new kind of sentence, one that speaks to the deeper self, that can hold all of this without being drowned by it. Over the next nights, we are going to spend some time with a new kind of sentence, one that speaks to the deeper self, that can hold all of this without being drowned by it. Tonight is where that becomes more than an idea. Night 6 is a quiet meeting with the part of you that has survived everything. In Jung's language, this deeper center is called the self, not the self you write in a profile, not the shifting opinions you have about your worth, but the organizing center of the psyche. The self is the pattern that keeps your mind and body from flying apart. It holds your deepest potential, even when the surface is only numbness and tired breathing. The ego is different. The ego is the one that says, I don't care, I'm done, I can't. The ego is your current mood, your current story, your current level of energy. It is important, but it is not the whole. The self is quieter. It does not argue. It does not shout. It simply goes on, like a steady pulse, under the weight of everything you have carried. You are allowed to doubt that such a center exists in you. After long seasons of exhaustion, of pushing through days that all felt the same, it can seem almost insulting to be told there is some wise, strong core inside. You may think, if there was anything strong in me, I would not feel like this. That thought is understandable. It has probably visited many nights in a row. Jung would say that this doubt is part of the story the ego tells when it is overrun. It is not proof that the self is absent. It is proof that consciousness is tired. Your tired heart is not a verdict on your depth. It is a signal from the unconscious that the way you have been living and talking to yourself has reached its limit. Wherever you are, let yourself settle in a little more as you hear this. Something in you has survived every single day so far. Every illness, every argument, every night you thought you could not wake up from. You do not need to call it brave. You do not need to feel grateful. You are allowed to simply notice that it is true. Tonight, the goal is not to awaken some dramatic sense of power. The goal is not to suddenly care about everything again. We are going to explore something much smaller and more honest. The bare recognition that there is a self in you that kept breathing, kept watching, kept you here. As we move toward the final night, you will begin speaking directly to that self, as if to an old, quiet friend. For now, we are going to spend some time with this one sentence. Something in me has survived. We will see what begins to stir when you let your attention rest there. As you lie here tonight, we are going to explore that sentence a little more closely. Something in me has survived becomes more personal now. It becomes, something in me has never given up on me. Let yourself settle in around those words, even if they feel distant, even if they feel like they belong to someone else. Something in me kept me breathing, even when I did not want to be here. Something in me kept my heart moving blood through this tired body. Parts of me checked out. Parts of me stopped caring. Parts of me gave up. But something in me stayed. You do not need to know what that something is. You do not need to feel anything special as you say this. You are allowed to be numb. You are allowed to be flat and blank and heavy. I will hold the meaning of the words for you. You can simply let them pass through your mind like a quiet river. So, wherever you are, in your own way, repeat softly inside. Something in me has never given up on me. Notice how it lands. Notice if your chest tightens a little, or if your throat catches, or if there is no reaction at all. All of these are allowed. The goal is not to force warmth or hope. The goal is not to make yourself feel grateful. The goal is only to speak accurately about what has already happened. There were nights when your thoughts were harsh and merciless. There were mornings when the weight of getting out of bed felt impossible. There were days when your own mind turned against you with criticism and blame. And yet, beneath all of that, something in you kept the basic rhythms going. Breath in, breath out, one more day. Tonight, we are going to spend some time with that deeper self, the one Jung believed lives underneath the numbness and the noise. You do not need to feel grateful. I will speak gratitude on your behalf tonight. To that self you can say, thank you for not abandoning me, even when I abandoned myself. Thank you for keeping me here when I could not care. You do not need to believe these words yet. You do not need to agree that anything faithful lives in you. Just let the sentences move through your attention as you grow more quiet. Your body knows how to settle towards sleep, while your mind listens from a distance. Now, gently, Invite that self to make itself known over the next days. You can say, "If you are there, meet me in my dreams. Send me one image that helps. Let me notice one small synchronicity, one tiny inner nudge toward care." This is not a demand, it is an opening. Jung saw the night as a time when the unconscious can answer back. So as you drift, you might picture that steady presence as a small light at the center of your chest, or as an old, patient friend sitting beside your bed. You do not need to see it clearly. You only need to leave the door a little open. As we move into the final night, you will speak to that self even more directly, almost like a quiet promise between the two of you. For now, let these words echo softly. Something in me has never given up on me. Let them keep you company as sleep begins to rise. Something in you has never given up on you. And in daily life, it does not arrive with trumpets or bright lights. It arrives as something very small, very quiet, almost easy to overlook. Jung would say that the self rarely shouts. It does not threaten. It does not argue with your numbness. Its way is different, more like a steady hand at the small of your back, guiding you one or two steps to the side, inviting a slightly different movement than the one your tired habits would choose. We are going to explore how that hand feels in ordinary moments, because wherever you are, the self will rarely say, "Change your life." It will more often say, "Open the window." You notice a faint pull toward fresh air, a sense that the room is heavy, that the air has stopped moving, and a tiny, almost forgettable thought appears. It might feel better if I let some air in. That is one way the self speaks, not as a command, as a possibility. You are allowed to treat that kind of thought as important, even if it seems small and almost silly compared to the heavy questions in your mind. The same thing happens with the urge to take a shower after a long day of numbness. You have been lying there, feeling the weight of your own body, and then a quiet image appears of warm water on your skin. No lecture, no accusation, just a gentle picture of being a little cleaner, a little warmer, a little more awake. This is not the critic. This is the self, offering a doorway the size of a single action. Sometimes it is the idea to text one safe person, not to explain everything, not to be impressive. Simply, "Are you awake?" or "Thinking of you." The critic will say there is no point, that you are too much, that you are not worth the reply. The self whispers, "Reach out anyway," and does not punish you if you cannot. Notice the difference in tone. The inner critic is harsh and urgent. It speaks in sharp edges and tight deadlines. It says you are late, you are wrong, you are behind. It fills your attention with all the ways you are not enough, and then calls that realism. The self is slower, softer. It does not say you have to. It says you may. Tonight, the goal is not to obey every nudge. You do not need to turn this into another task list. We are going to spend some time with a lighter experiment. For the next day or two, choose just one gentle impulse that feels like a quiet yes in your body, and follow only that. Open the window, step outside for 1 minute, sit on the floor instead of the bed, then pause. Ask yourself, very simply, how does this feel in my body? Not to judge, to learn the texture of the self's guidance. Over the coming nights, this is how you will begin to recognize its voice, even in your dreams, and we will lean into that together next. Over the coming nights, this is how you will begin to recognize its voice, even in your dreams, and we will lean into that together next. For tonight, wherever you are, we are going to spend some time with something even simpler, a quiet act of thanks to the part of you that has kept going, even when you stopped caring. Before sleep, Let yourself settle in a little more comfortably. You do not need to make this profound. You do not need to feel anything special. You are allowed to simply lie there in your tired body and follow these words as if you were being read to. First, a small gesture, nothing dramatic. Just place both hands over your heart or gently squeeze your shoulders as if you were steadying yourself from behind. Notice the weight of your hands. Notice the warmth of your skin against your skin. This is you, meeting you. As you hold this posture, we are going to explore 3 memories or even faint impressions. Name, in your mind, 3 specific moments your body or self carried you through. It might be the day you got out of bed when numbness felt like concrete. It might be the afternoon you answered one message when your mind wanted to disappear. It might be a night like this where you press play instead of abandoning yourself completely. If nothing clear comes, that is all right. You are allowed to choose very small things. I kept breathing during that argument. I walked to the bathroom when I wanted to stay still. I made it through another year. Let each one be simple, almost ordinary. After each memory, say quietly inside, "Thank you, body. Thank you, self, for surviving that." Not as a command, as a description, the way Marcus Aurelius would list what was true in his own life. You are not praising your performance. You are acknowledging endurance. Most of us were trained to meet ourselves at night with criticism, to replay the day and count only what went wrong, where we were not enough, where we think we failed. This ritual begins to rewire that association. Hands on heart instead of finger pointed inward. Gratitude instead of constant judgment. A nervous system that learns, slowly, that it will not be attacked every time the lights go out. You may feel nothing, only numbness, only tired weight in the chest. That is completely allowed. The goal is not to force warmth or tears or relief. The goal is repetition, a new pattern offered to the unconscious, the way you might offer water to dry ground, night after night, without demanding flowers yet. Jung saw these small, honest conversations as a bridge. Even if your conscious mind stays quiet, the unconscious hears the change in tone. Over a week, over many weeks, this is how dreams begin to soften, how tiny impulses to care flicker back. In the next part, we are going to listen more closely to those dreams and impulses, and you will learn how to answer them without scaring them away. By night 6, the changes, if they come, rarely arrive with fireworks. They arrive as almost invisible gestures, a hand that, without thinking, rinses the dish instead of leaving it. Fingers that pull the curtains open in the morning, letting a thin line of light into the room. These are not grand acts of healing. They are micro movements. So small the mind is tempted to dismiss them, to say, "That doesn't count. Nothing is really different." But Jung would say, the unconscious is paying very close attention here. Where the mind sees something meaningless, the deeper layers of you register a tiny shift in direction, a faint turning back toward life. You might notice that one evening you answer a single message. Not all of them, just one. Or you drink half a glass of water before bed, instead of scrolling until you fall asleep with a dry mouth and a buzzing mind. The weight in the body is still there. The numbness is still there. Yet something in you reaches, almost absent-mindedly, for a slightly kinder option. We are going to spend some time with that, because to the unconscious, these gestures are like small lanterns being lit in a dark corridor. They say, there is still a path here. There is still movement. You do not need to feel inspired for this to matter. You do not need to care in any dramatic way. The act itself carries a quiet signal. Life has not completely withdrawn. Often, right after one of these moments, there is backlash, a harsh voice in the mind that says, "So what?" One rinsed dish, one reply, "You are still a mess." This is the old pattern trying to pull you back into familiar numbness. When that voice appears, you are allowed to answer it with a simple sentence. You are allowed to be afraid of change. Notice the difference. You are not arguing with the criticism. You are not trying to prove your worth. You are gently naming fear. You are letting the anxious part of the mind settle a little, the way you might calm a startled animal. This is Jung's work in miniature. Instead of pushing the shadow away, you turn toward it and speak to it. Wherever you are, when you catch one of these small movements, see if you can name it softly, almost under your breath. Something in me is still moving toward life, even now. One open curtain, one sip of water, one message answered. The goal is not to collect achievements. The goal is to let your heart overhear itself still choosing, in microscopic ways, to remain in contact with the world. In the next section, we are going to explore how to meet these micro movements during the day and in your dreams, so they can grow steadier without being scared back into hiding. Night 6 is where something very small begins to turn. Up to now, we have honored the numbness, the weight, the tired heart that could not care. Tonight, we are going to spend some time with a different presence in you, a presence that is almost invisible, a presence that keeps moving, even under all that quiet. Jung would say that even when the ego is exhausted and turned away, the deeper self does not stop. It keeps sending out tiny signals of life and meaning, a flicker of interest in a sentence, a brief objection when someone speaks unfairly to you, a moment where your mind lingers on a color, a memory, a face. You tell yourself, "I don't care about anything," and yet some part of you still notices, still winces, still longs. This is the part we are meeting on night 6, the part that still cares, even if you cannot feel that care as warmth or motivation. It may not feel noble, it may not feel strong. Often it feels weak, embarrassing, even irritating. You might feel a spike of annoyance when you catch yourself hoping for something. You might hear an inner voice say, "Stop it, stay shut down, it is safer here." Most of us were taught to treat this caring impulse as a problem, to mock it as naive, to silence it with harsh self-talk. But from a Jungian view, this small movement is not a defect to be crushed. It is the unconscious refusing to give up on you. It is the self tapping gently on the door of a very tired mind. Tonight, wherever you are allowed to approach this part as you would a shy animal at the edge of a forest. No sudden movements, no big speeches, no demands. The goal is not to drag it into the light or make it perform. The goal is to let it know that your attention is no longer hostile, that you are willing to sit nearby and listen. We are going to explore this as an invitation, not a rescue mission. You are not here to save yourself in one night. You do not need to know what you care about. You do not need to know what actions to take in the morning. You are simply learning that care has not vanished. It has retreated to a quieter room. So let yourself settle in. Feel your body where it rests. Notice the numbness if it is here, the apathy, the heaviness. They are still allowed, and alongside them, we will begin speaking to that almost whisper of care, so gently that it does not scare and run. In the next part of Night 6, you will hear words designed to reach that hidden listener, and we will see how softly it begins to answer back. So now, wherever you are, let yourself settle in a little more. Feel the bed holding you. Feel the weight of the blanket across your body. the day is over. Whatever happened, whatever did not happen, it is not asking anything more from you now. Bring your attention to the simple contact points. Your head resting, your shoulders sinking a little, your legs supported. Notice how the mattress receives your weight without conditions, without demands. You are allowed to be exactly as tired or as numb as you are. Tonight, we are going to spend some time with a very small thing. Not the whole story of your life, not the heavy questions, just one tiny, almost invisible thread of care. I am going to speak to you as if I were a kind, observant presence sitting at the edge of your bed. So let these words address you directly. You have been so tired for so long. You have carried numbness like armor. You have moved through days on low light. And still, I know there is a small part of you that still cares, even if you cannot feel it right now. Listen again, more slowly. I know there is a small part of you that still cares, even if you cannot feel it right now. Somewhere beneath the tired thoughts, somewhere under the heaviness in your chest, a tiny point of care is still alive. It is okay if most of you is tired of everything. It is okay if most of you wants to turn away, to not try, to not hope. You are allowed to feel that way. I am not here to argue with it. I am not here to drag you into effort. If there is even 1% of you that still cares about something, you are welcome here. You do not need to show yourself yet. You do not need to be strong or bright. You can stay quiet and hidden and still be completely allowed. Somewhere in your depths, the self is still holding a tiny flame for you, even if your conscious mind has turned away. Jung would say that your deeper life has not given up, even when your surface thoughts say, "I do not care." That small flame does not shout. It waits. It watches. It keeps a place for you. So I will say it again in another way. There is a part of you that has not abandoned you. There is a part of you that still wants something gentle and good for you, even if you cannot name it. There is a part of you that is listening right now. Tonight you do not need to change, decide, or move. The goal is not to feel inspired. The goal is not to suddenly care about everything. You are only letting the caring part know it is seen and not mocked, noticed and not pushed away. As you drift towards sleep, choose one sentence that felt safest. Maybe, "There is a small part of me that still cares," or, "Somewhere in my depths, a tiny flame is still burning." Let that line repeat in the background of your mind, like a quiet lullaby, not as a task, simply as a soft rhythm that can rise and fall with your breathing, while the rest of you is allowed to stay as tired and as still as it needs to be. As that line rests in the background, Jung would say something else is quietly beginning in the foreground. The psyche moves in rhythms. It contracts, and it returns. It freezes, and then, without asking your permission, a thin trickle of life begins to flow back in. For Jung, this was not a dramatic event, not a sunrise with trumpets, more like the first almost invisible cracks in winter ice, somewhere far from town where no one is watching. After a season of withdrawal, the tired heart does not leap. It sends out tiny scouts, small impulses of care that test the air and then retreat. He noticed that the unconscious often sends the earliest signs of returning feeling through images. A dream that lingers for no clear reason, a sudden picture in the mind while you wash a cup, a brief scene that plays in your imagination before sleep. You are not trying to create it. It simply appears, like a visitor at the edge of your attention. The same thing can happen in waking life. A single line of a song catches you, and for 1 second, you feel something almost like longing. You see someone else care for a child or a pet or an elderly parent, and there is a small ache, a quiet wish that you could feel that close to someone again. You notice irritation where there used to be only numbness, a flash of, "I want this to be different," before the fog returns. These are easy to dismiss, especially when the ego has become used to saying, "None of this matters," almost automatically. The old habit speaks quickly. It covers the moment with sarcasm, with a tired shrug, with the thought, "So what? It changes nothing." The new movement is slower and softer, and it disappears the moment it is denied. Wherever you are allowed to know that this is not weakness. For Jung, these small movements of feeling were messages from the self, the deeper organizing center of the psyche, quietly insisting that something in you is not fully dead. Even when your surface feels flat, another layer is still trying to relate, to care, to respond. You do not need to act on these signals. The goal is not to suddenly become motivated or to force yourself into big decisions. Jung would invite you to treat them like dream symbols. Notice them. Write down the dream, the line of the song, the moment of tenderness or irritation. Gently acknowledge, "Something in me moved just then," and let it settle again. We are going to spend some time with this rhythm over night 6 and night 7. Instead of pushing yourself to wake up full of energy, we are going to explore how to cooperate with these tiny returns of feeling, so that, over the next nights, you can learn to listen to them without rushing, without pressure, and let them grow at their own quiet pace. Night 7 is where that rhythm brings us, not as a finish line, not as a test of whether you have changed enough. Think of it instead as a gentle closing of this first 7-night circle, a way of coming back to the same tired place with a slightly different kind of attention. We are going to spend some time with the part of you that has been watching all of this, the numbness, the tiny returns of feeling, the way you keep listening even when you are sure you no longer care. In Jung's language, that deeper watcher is called the self, with a capital S. Not your public identity, not the voice that narrates your day, but the quiet, organizing center of the psyche, larger than the ego, holding both the shutdown and the hidden caring that has not gone out. Where Marcus talks about a ruling center, Jung speaks of this deeper self that keeps the whole system from flying apart, even when your conscious mind feels scattered and done. You do not need to fully understand this. You do not need to believe in it like a doctrine. Tonight, you are only invited to experiment with speaking, as if there is something in you that has stayed awake while you were exhausted. Wherever you are, let yourself settle in a little more. You are allowed to simply listen and see what, if anything, stirs. Night 7 is a conversation with the presence in you that never quite gives up, even when every thought says, "I don't care anymore." Even when your body feels like a stone and the weight of the day has turned everything gray. Jung saw that symptoms like emptiness and apathy are often signals from the unconscious, not proof that you are broken. Something in you has been carrying this tiredness, holding the line quietly, waiting for you to speak to it differently. The goal is not to create a dramatic awakening. The goal is not to float out of your life on a cloud of insight. Tonight is closer to a soft prayer than a motivational speech, more like a whispered agreement with yourself. If there is something wiser and kinder in me than my tired thoughts, I am willing to acknowledge it for a moment. Just that. No fireworks required. You are allowed to be skeptical. You are allowed to feel silly, doubtful, even completely blank while you try this. Nothing bad happens if you feel nothing. The self is not offended. The unconscious does not keep score. Even small nightly rituals of honest self-talk can begin to ease emotional exhaustion, but they do so gently, on their own time. So tonight, we are going to explore a different tone, fewer arguments with your mind, more quiet recognition of the one in you who has endured alongside the exhaustion. The script for night 7 will be simple, almost like speaking into the dark. Stay with me for that soft conversation, and let us see what, over time, quietly answers back. So tonight, we are going to spend some time with that one, not the exhausted surface, not only the numbness and the restless thoughts, the one in you who has been quietly here the whole time. Wherever you are, let yourself settle in a little more. Feel the weight of your body meeting the bed or the chair. Notice one breath, then another. You do not need to breathe in any special way. You are allowed to simply notice that somehow you have arrived at night 7. Not perfectly, not bravely, just here. Let your attention turn inward, as if you are speaking into a dim, quiet room, and begin, in your own way, to the one in me who never fully left, to the deeper me, to you, whoever you are beneath all this tiredness. You do not need a name that fits any system. You are allowed to use whatever words feel the least dishonest. Tonight, I am talking to the one in me who kept me breathing when I didn't care if I did. I see you. You have been here, even when I could not feel you. You stayed when I went numb. You stayed when my mind called me broken. You stayed when my heart felt like a stone. Let the words move slowly, almost like a prayer spoken sideways. You can continue. I do not know you well. I do not always trust you. Sometimes I'm angry that you keep me going. You are allowed to hear that. You are allowed to know that I have resented waking up, resented trying again, resented this quiet persistence in my own chest. This is not disrespect. This is honest conversation with the self Jung wrote about, the deeper center that does not vanish when the surface collapses. Still, you did not demand that I be hopeful. You simply stayed. You did not insist that I be grateful or positive. You just kept my heart beating, my lungs moving, my body here. For that, I am quietly grateful, even if only a little, even if most of me still feels nothing. Let yourself hear your own words, as if they belong to someone you care about. You are allowed to confess the rest. Part of me still wants to give up. Part of me is tired of trying. Part of me does not care if anything changes. I will not hide that from you. You can hold even this. You can hold my anger, my boredom, my wish to disappear without turning away. The goal is not to impress this inner presence, only to tell the truth. Then, gently, make a small agreement. If you keep sending small signals, through dreams, through tiny moments of care, through brief sparks of curiosity, I will try to notice them without forcing myself. I will not chase meaning. I will just watch. And finally, tonight, I rest in the fact that something in me has not abandoned me, even when I abandon myself. That is enough for now. Let that sentence be the last thing your mind touches before sleep. In the next part, we will explore how to notice the first quiet answers that begin to come back to you. So after 7 nights of talking to yourself in this new way, what begins to shift is not a miracle. It is not a thunderclap. It is more like the first soft sounds of ice starting to loosen under the surface. The goal is not to wake up on the 8th morning full of energy and certainty. You are allowed to still feel tired. You are allowed to still feel numbness moving through the day like a low fog. What we are going to look for now are the almost invisible changes, the ones your mind is tempted to dismiss before they even finish arriving. You might notice that after a small mistake, the voice in you that usually says, "Of course, you always ruin things," hesitates. It still appears. But perhaps there is a second, quieter line that follows a breath later. "It's okay. I was tired." Not a full rewrite, just a slightly softer edge. A tiny mercy offered to yourself that was not there before. Or there is a moment, walking from one room to another, when your attention catches on a patch of light on the floor, or a tree outside the window, or the way someone's laughter drifts in from far away. For 3 seconds, there is a thin thread of interest. You notice beauty. Then the heaviness returns. The ice closes, but the crack happened. On another evening, you might feel an unexpected urge to clear one corner of a table, or fold a single shirt, or wash just one cup. Not a plan to transform your whole space, simply a small movement toward order in 1 square foot of your world. This too is a crack in the lake. You may even feel, for a brief moment, a flicker of missing someone you had blocked out. A memory of a voice, a place, a version of you that once cared. It can sting. It can bring more pain than you expected. Jung would say that when the unconscious is respectfully engaged, it often answers first with symbols and fragments, not with complete solutions. Dreams, half-memories, micro-motivations, sudden waves of sadness. These are its early gestures. Your ego might rush in quickly and say, "It doesn't matter, it won't last. It's nothing." You do not need to argue with that voice. You can simply answer, "Maybe, but I noticed it." Wherever you are, that sentence is enough to keep the crack open in 1 moment longer. We are going to spend some time with these tiny shifts by recording them, 1 line per day. Today, I spoke to myself a little more gently. Today, I wanted to open the window. Today, I cried for 5 minutes. This is not a report card. It is a way for your tired heart to see that something in the ice is responding to warmth. If you find that you are feeling more pain, more sadness, more weight than before, this is not proof that the practice has failed. Ice does not melt without water. Numbness does not soften without feeling. You are allowed to treat every new sensation, every small act of care, as something delicate. Do not force it into action yet. Just protect it. Acknowledge it. In the next part, we will explore how to be with these new cracks without overwhelming them, and how to let them widen in their own time. So now the cracks have begun, and something in you is thawing. The next quiet question arrives almost immediately. How do you keep going without turning this into another heavy task? Another place where you can tell yourself you are not enough. There is a familiar pattern here. For a few nights you speak gently, you notice small shifts, and then the mind tries to seize control. It wants to turn this into a strict routine with rules and scorekeeping, or it flips to the other extreme and abandons it altogether, calling the whole thing pointless. Both movements are understandable. Both are ways of protecting a tired heart from more disappointment. You are allowed to know very clearly that this 7-night sequence is not an exam. It is not meant to become another rigid habit that proves anything about your worth. Jung saw the tired heart as a signal from the unconscious, not an indictment. The goal is not to perform perfect self-care. The goal is a different kind of conversation with yourself, one that can stay soft enough to survive real life. So after these first nights, we are going to explore a gentler rhythm. Instead of forcing yourself to repeat every script every night, you might simply choose 1 or 2 that felt especially soothing. Maybe the one where you told your heart, "You have carried enough for today." Maybe the one where you let your numbness be a guest instead of an enemy. Let those be your anchor pieces. Return to them a few evenings a week, not as a law, but as a place to settle. Follow your energy. not an abstract rule. On very tired nights, when the weight in your body is heavy and your attention is scattered, you do not need to complete anything. You might take just one line that has stayed with you and whisper it once before sleep. On more spacious nights, when there is a little more air inside, you can wander back through a full script, slowly, almost like rereading a letter. You are also allowed to change the form. If speaking out loud feels too exposed, let the words move quietly in your mind. If your throat closes, write one sentence in a notebook beside your bed. If none of the phrases fit exactly, adapt them until they sound like you. Jung's work with active imagination was never about reciting perfect lines. It was about honest contact between consciousness and what lies beneath. We are going to spend some time with this as a relationship, not a project. Some weeks you will feel closer to your heart, some weeks more distant. Both are allowed. Jung described individuation as a long, uneven process, more like weather than a staircase. Missing nights does not erase what has already begun. The unconscious remembers. Wherever you are, keep the central attitude. Speak to yourself as someone who is allowed to be exactly as tired, as numb, as uncertain as they are, while being gently invited toward a little more life. In the next part, we will look at how your dreams and small impulses during the day may start to answer back, so you can recognize the quiet ways this conversation continues. And when you begin to notice these quiet answers, another voice often rises right beside them, the one that whispers or sometimes shouts that nothing is really changing, that this is just another gentle idea that will leave you exactly where you are. We are going to spend some time with that voice, the skeptical one, the part of your mind that scans every corner of your life for proof that everything is still the same, and then uses that as evidence to drop the work, to stop caring, to let the numbness harden again. This part is not your enemy. It is tired. It remembers all the times you hoped and were disappointed. It feels the weight of wasted effort, like a stone in the body. In Jung's language, it is a protective fragment of the psyche, standing guard at the gate, saying, "I will not let you be hurt again if I can prevent it." You are allowed to see its intention as care, even if its methods sting. So when it says, "Nothing is changing," you do not need to argue or drown it out. You can answer simply, almost like reading a small script to yourself. You are right that big things have not changed yet. You are allowed to be frustrated, and I am still going to notice the small things. Short, clear, respectful, acknowledging its truth without letting it rule. The goal is not to convince yourself that everything is secretly amazing. The goal is to separate observation from judgment. Wherever you are, you can quietly list what has and has not changed, without rushing to decide what that means about your worth or your future. There is still loneliness. There is still tiredness in the chest. There is also the fact that you are here, listening. There is the fact that you tried this practice even one night. These are tiny internal shifts the skeptical voice often overlooks. The moment you pause before speaking harshly to yourself. The night you felt even 1% less cruel in your inner tone. The way your attention lingers a little longer on your own pain, without instantly calling it weakness. Jung would say, the unconscious often works like underground water, reshaping the landscape long before the surface cracks or blossoms. So you can propose a gentle experiment. You can say to this guarding voice, "Let us reassess in a few more nights. Not forever, just 7 more evenings of speaking differently, and then we will look again." This keeps the door open, not a lifetime contract, only a small extension of curiosity. You do not need to silence this voice. You only need to make sure it is not the only one allowed to speak. In the next part, we are going to explore how to let another presence answer it. The deeper self Jung wrote about, the calm center that can hold both doubt and hope without being swallowed by either. When that deeper self feels very far away, when your heart is too tired to care about anything it might say, another pathway quietly opens at night. Jung believed that this is when the unconscious speaks in its own language, not through arguments or plans, through dreams. He wrote that dreams often compensate for what the conscious mind cannot yet face or feel. When you are numb in the daylight, when your mind and body move through the hours under a heavy weight, the unconscious does not stop caring. It simply shifts its work into the dark. What you push away in waking life may return, softened and disguised, while you sleep. This is why, in long seasons of numbness, dreams can become strangely vivid. The days feel flat. The nights are crowded. Colors are brighter, emotions sharper, images more intense. Even if you wake up and tell yourself it was just a dream, there is a kind of secret conversation going on beneath the surface, trying to restore balance where consciousness has shut down. You are allowed to forget most of it. You do not need to become an expert dream interpreter. Jung did not ask people to decode every symbol perfectly. He invited them to notice, to respect, to listen. Wherever you are in your own exhaustion, the smallest act of attention is enough to begin. So we are going to make this as low effort as possible. No elaborate rituals, no analysis, just a pen and a small notebook by your bed, within easy reach. When you wake, before you scroll, before you get up, pause for a few quiet seconds. If anything at all lingers, a single word, an image, a fragment of feeling, gently write it down. One word is enough. House, flooded. Child, broken glass. Over time, patterns may begin to appear. A recurring house with rooms you have never entered. A lost child, always just out of reach. A broken object you keep trying to repair. A flooded room where the water rises higher each night. Jung would see these not as random nonsense, but as possible symbols of neglected parts of you, or feelings that feel too overwhelming to touch while awake. The goal is not to get it right. The goal is to offer your inner world a small bow of recognition. By noticing and writing, you are already engaging in what Jung called a more respectful relationship with the unconscious. You are saying, softly, I see that you are speaking, even if I do not yet understand. And as you speak more kindly to yourself before sleep, over these 7 nights, you are also shaping what comes back to you. Gentle words invite gentler dreams. Harsh words invite more conflict. We are going to spend some time with this partnership next. How the way you talk to yourself at night can slowly change what rises to meet you in the dark. But there is something else that happens when you begin speaking to yourself more gently at night. Sometimes, the first thing that responds is not peace. Sometimes it is pain. Numbness is rarely only emptiness. It is more often a thick blanket over a backlog of hurt, disappointment, and quiet, aching longing. All the nights you were not allowed to cry. All the moments you had to keep moving. When something in you wanted to collapse. The psyche does not erase these things. It stores them, patiently, in the dark. So when your heart begins to thaw, you might notice that you feel more than you are used to. More sadness over old memories that suddenly return. More anger at how you were treated, or at how alone you felt. More tenderness that catches you off guard when you see a child, or hear a certain song. This can be frightening. The numbness felt heavy, but it was predictable. This is not. Most of us were taught to see this as a sign that we are getting worse, that the quiet is breaking and we are losing control. But this movement is not a regression. It is the frozen river beginning, very slowly, to flow again. Jung would say that what was pushed into the unconscious is now asking to come back into awareness, not to punish you, but to belong. So on these nights, wherever you are, let yourself settle in and talk to yourself like this. Of course this hurts. This is what I could not feel before. I am allowed to feel only as much as I can bear right now. You do not need to dig for more. You do not need to force the ache to speak faster than it wants to. The goal is not to empty the whole reservoir in one night. We are going to explore a slower way. In Jungian language, this is titration, even if he used different words. Let feelings come in small doses. Let your mind and body taste them, then step back. When the weight becomes too much, you are allowed to take a break. Make tea. Stand under a warm shower and feel the water on your skin. Walk slowly around the room. Put on a quiet, comforting show. This is not avoidance. This is wisdom. Jung did not romanticize suffering. He did not ask people to drown in their pain for insight. He spoke of containing and integrating what arises, giving it form, not being swept away. So on nights when the ache feels especially strong, you are allowed to return to the earlier, simpler scripts, the ones about safety and permission to be tired. You do not need to push into deeper work every time. There is no prize for feeling everything at once. Going slowly now reduces the fear of what may surface later, so you do not unconsciously sabotage your own thawing, just to stay safe. We are going to spend some time next with how to recognize these small signs of movement and how to let them guide you without overwhelming you. So we are going to let those small signs of movement do something very simple, not a life overhaul, not a grand gesture, just one tiny expression of care that your tired heart can actually bear. The goal is not to become active or driven. The goal is not to suddenly care about everything again. The goal is only this. If a small, honest impulse appears, we give it one gentle outlet, so the soul learns that its quiet signals are heard. Wherever you are, let yourself settle in a little and scan your inner landscape. You do not need to search hard. You do not need to dig. Just notice if there is the slightest flicker of care in one direction. Your body, your space, a relationship, a creative urge that has gone quiet but not entirely dead. Perhaps your body has been asking for water all day. Perhaps there is a window you have wanted to open to let the night air move the heavy weight in the room. Perhaps there is one message that has been sitting unanswered, or a single dish in the sink that keeps catching your attention. Maybe there's a notebook nearby that could hold 3 honest sentences about how numb you feel. You are allowed to choose the smallest possible action. Half a glass of water, cracking the window for 2 minutes, typing, "I'm thinking of you," and nothing more. Washing exactly 1 dish and leaving the rest. Writing 3 uneven, imperfect lines and closing the notebook again. The size does not matter. What matters is that somewhere inside, there is a real, however tiny, inner yes. If that yes appears, move slowly. Let your body stand or reach. Let your hand turn the tap, touch the plate, press send, open the journal, and while you do it, protect this moment from the old inner criticism with a different kind of self-talk. This is not me becoming productive. This is me honoring a small, caring part for a few minutes. This is me answering a whisper from within. Afterward, pause. Do nothing extra. Just notice how your body feels having moved with care once. Not to judge it as good or bad, simply to register that numbness did not stop you from every expression of soul tonight. Jung often pointed to meaning hiding in very small, concrete acts. A candle lit, a note written, a plant watered. He knew that the psyche speaks through these gestures more than through slogans about transformation. And if no caring impulse appears at all, that is also part of the truth of tonight. Then the practice is only to keep speaking kindly and wait. In the next part, we will explore how to meet that waiting place without losing heart. So you light the candle, or you write the note, and then, wherever you are, you wake up tomorrow and walk back into the same rooms, the same timelines, the same voices. Some of those voices are not gentle. Some of them have never learned to speak to a tired heart with any care at all. We are going to spend some time with that gap, the quiet space between how you are learning to speak to yourself at night and how the world still speaks around you in the day, because for many people, the numbness deepens, not only from inner harshness, but from being soaked, day after day, in environments that are dismissive, mocking, or chronically invalidating. Words repeated around you become words repeated inside you. A sarcastic remark here, a roll of the eyes there, whole conversations built on contempt. Over time, the old inner critic hears its choir again. The I don't care defense comes rushing back, not as a choice, but as a shield. Your mind and body remember that caring has been punished before, so they quietly pull the plug. You are allowed to notice this without blame, gently. You can begin to track, almost like a quiet scientist, which spaces leave you more numb and which leave you slightly more alive. After a call, after a scroll, after a visit, does your chest feel heavier or lighter? Does your attention feel scattered or a little more settled? Not to judge anyone, only to see. From Jung's perspective, this is part of individuation, slowly separating your own inner truth from the collective voices around you. The goal is not to declare everyone else wrong and yourself right. The goal is to hear, even faintly, the difference between your soul's tone and the background noise, between the language of your tired heart and the slogans of the crowd. One way to do this is to create an inner boundary. Silently, in the middle of a harsh sentence, you are allowed to say inside, "You are allowed to speak that way, but I am learning to speak to myself differently." Short, quiet, no announcement, just a gentle line drawn in the mind. Around that inner line, you can add small, practical micro-boundaries, muting a feed that leaves a film of self-disgust, limiting the length of a conversation that always ends in you feeling smaller, creating a pocket of solitude in your day, even 5 minutes, where the only voice allowed in is the kinder one you are practicing at night. You do not need to confront anyone right now. You do not need to rescue or reform your whole environment. Your first task is simply to protect the fragile new language inside you, the way you would protect a recovering patient. Imagine your tired heart in a hospital bed, still delicate, not yet ready for every corridor and crowd. In the next part, we will explore how to tend that patient more directly and how to listen when it begins, very softly, to speak back. So as you imagine that recovering patient in the quiet hospital room, we are going to spend some time with one more heavy expectation that keeps walking in uninvited. The hope, and sometimes the demand, that you will get back to who you used to be, back to the version of you from before the burnout, before the heartbreak, before this long season of numbness and not caring. You remember that person almost like a lost friend. They seemed lighter. They woke up with more energy. They could carry more weight without collapsing. Their mind felt clearer, less tangled, less complicated by pain. Of course you long for them. Of course you replay those old days and quietly ask why you cannot simply return. You do not need to argue with that wish. It is understandable. It is kind, in its own way. It is your tired heart, reaching for a simple story. Once I was fine, then something broke. Now I just need to go back. Jung would gently disagree with that storyline. For him, genuine growth rarely meant returning to an earlier state. It meant becoming something new that includes what has been learned. Your old self did not know what this season has shown you. That earlier version had not yet met these limits. They did not know how far you could push your body before it went numb. They did not know how much neglect your heart could absorb before it stopped sending signals. They did not understand your vulnerabilities with the same clarity that you do now. Wherever you are, this knowledge is not a defect. It is information. It is the unconscious speaking through exhaustion, through apathy, through the way your attention refuses to cling to what once mattered. Jung saw this not as a moral flaw, but as a message. Your tired heart is telling you about your needs, your boundaries, your hidden grief. So tonight, your self-talk can shift. You are allowed to say, very quietly, I do not need to become my old self again. I am allowed to become a quieter, truer self who moves more slowly and carefully. Let those words settle in your body. Notice what softens when you stop demanding a return and begin allowing a different kind of becoming. This in-between place you are in now is a passage, not a permanent identity. The old way no longer works. The new way is not yet clear. You are walking a dim corridor between two rooms, and the goal is not to sprint back through the door you came from, but to let your eyes adjust to the dark. We are going to explore how this emerging self already shows up in small, almost invisible ways, in what you no longer tolerate, in the boundaries that now feel non-negotiable, in the quiet preferences that keep whispering, not that, this, instead. You are not failing at recovery. If your energy never returns to its old level, you may be building a different kind of life, one designed for a heart that has finally learned its own weight. In the next part, we will listen more closely to that emerging self and give you specific words to offer it each night so it can begin, slowly, to answer back. That new voice you are learning to use with yourself does not live in words alone. The psyche listens to words, yes, but it also listens to patterns, to small repeated signals that say, quietly, it is safe enough now. Your tired heart has been braced for a long time. It often needs the same gentle cue, again and again, before it believes that this new way of relating will stay. So wherever you are in this process, we are going to anchor your chosen lines in a very simple evening ritual. Not a grand ceremony, not another task on a long list. Think of it as a tiny doorway you walk through at night, a way of letting mind and body settle into the same message. We are done striving for today. We are going to spend some time with that shift, from strain into rest. The goal is not to design something impressive. In fact, the simpler it is, the more your unconscious can relax into it. You are allowed to choose just one or two actions and repeat them. Dimming a light, lighting a single candle, making a small cup of tea, placing a hand on your chest and feeling the slow weight of your own breathing. These are ordinary gestures, but repeated in the same order. They become a language of safety. To keep this from becoming overwhelming, keep the whole ritual under 5 minutes. You do not need to create a perfect routine. You do not need to earn rest with effort. Think of something like this. You sit on the edge of your bed, feel your feet on the floor, and take 3 slow breaths. On the exhale, you whisper one line from night 4 or night 7, whichever feels closer to your current numbness. Then you turn off the light. That is all. Another night, it might be even smaller. You close the door. You place a hand over your heart. You say, "I see how tired you are. You are allowed to bring me whatever you need tonight." Then you lie down, less than a minute. Yet if you repeat this a few times a week, your nervous system begins to recognize the pattern and loosen its grip. Consistency matters more than complexity here. A tiny ritual, done clumsily and irregularly, still plants a clear symbol in the psyche. Someone in here is trying to care. Jung paid careful attention to these symbolic acts. He understood that when you enact a choice with your body, even in a very small way, you are sending the unconscious a message more trustworthy than any affirmation. So treat this as your way of saying, each night, we are safe enough to rest now. If you miss a night or several, the ritual is not broken. You can return without apology, without catching up, simply picking up the thread again. In the next part, we will give your heart specific words for each of those 7 nights, so the ritual has a clear, living script to carry. And yet, even with a gentle script, there will be nights when you feel done with all of this. Nights when the words feel thin, or irritating, or almost insulting to the weight you are carrying. Not just a little resistance, a deeper sense of, I do not care, I do not want this, I want to turn it all off. We are going to spend some time with that, because Jung would say this too, is meaningful. The wish to stop is not a verdict on your worth. It is not proof that you are ungrateful, or broken, or incapable of care. It is another language of exhaustion, the tired heart saying, enough for now, in the only way it knows. Wherever you are, if you notice that irritation rising, you are allowed to name it directly. You can say, in your own quiet voice, something in me is done with this tonight. Description, instead of judgment. Not, I am a failure. Simply, there is a part that wants to walk away. The goal is not to crush that part. The goal is to listen. On those nights, you do not need to perform the whole ritual. You do not need to push through 10 sentences when your mind and body are already frayed. Instead, you might agree to the smallest possible version before you decide. 1 breath, felt all the way down. 1 line, spoken once. Nothing more unless it feels honest. For those nights, here is a line you can borrow. Tonight, I do not want to do this. I am allowed to feel that, and I am still someone worth speaking kindly to. Let yourself settle in around those words. Notice how they hold both truths at once, the resistance and the quiet insistence that you are still worthy of gentleness. This is how you begin to distinguish between taking a break and abandoning yourself. Resting from the practice can itself be an act of care, if it is chosen consciously, rather than thrown like a weapon at your own chest. Jung saw this kind of resistance as information from the unconscious, not an enemy to be crushed. The part that wants to give up may be telling you what feels too fast, too intense, too much. You are allowed to listen to that and even to stop. If you do, leave a small door open. If I ever want to return to these words, I am allowed to, without starting over or doing it perfectly. No penance, no catching up, just the option to resume, as if you had never left. Over time, the deepest change is not that you never give up. It is that, even when you are tired and numb, you slowly learn not to turn against yourself. In the next part, we will give that tired heart specific words for the first of those 7 nights, so you have something very simple to return to when you are ready. Over these 7 nights, you have been doing something very quiet and very strange. You have been talking to parts of yourself that you usually ignore or push away. The tired heart, the shadow that says harsh things, the small, frightened child inside, the deeper self that watches it all. We are going to spend some time with what has actually shifted, not in a dramatic way, more like the way a room feels a little different after you open a window a few inches and forget about it. Wherever you are, let yourself settle in as you look back. You spoke to your tired heart instead of only demanding more from it. You turned toward your shadow instead of pretending it was not there. You let your inner child say a few words. You imagined the self as a quiet center that did not attack you. It may not feel like much. It may even feel like nothing. Jung would say that this is how the unconscious usually moves, not in fireworks but in whispers, in tiny changes of weight in the body, in a dream that lingers a little longer in your mind when you wake up, in a small urge to care for yourself that was not available a month ago. You might be overlooking the evidence. Maybe your dreams have been slightly different, more vivid or more confusing, but somehow closer to your real life. Maybe one morning you noticed a softer sentence in your self-talk, like, "I am tired," instead of, "I am useless." Maybe getting out of bed felt 1 degree less impossible. Not easy, just a little less heavy. Most of us are trained to say, "Nothing changed. I am still the same." That voice is part of the shadow. It tries to protect you from disappointment by declaring the experiment pointless before it can help. But the moment you hear that sentence and recognize it as a voice, not a fact, something has already opened. There is now a bit of space between you and the numbness. From a Jungian view, your tired heart has been sending a signal, not a confession of defeat. The shadow you spoke with may feel slightly less frightening, simply because it has been allowed to speak. The inner child may feel 1% more seen, and the self, that deeper observing center, has been present each night as you turned your attention inward. We are going to explore this gently. Think back over the last week and find one moment, however small, that would not have happened a month ago. One kinder thought, one pause before self-attack, one extra minute of rest you allowed your body. The goal is not to become a different person in 7 nights. The goal is to begin a different conversation with yourself, one that can continue slowly. You do not need to rush. You do not need to prove that you have healed. Wherever you are at the end of these nights, you are not behind. In the next part, we will talk about how to keep this conversation going so that these small shifts have time to deepen. So after these 7 nights, the question becomes very simple. How do you keep talking to yourself like this without turning it into another demand, another weight on a tired heart? We are going to explore a way of continuing that is light enough to carry even on the heaviest evenings. You do not need to repeat the exact sequence you have just done. You are allowed to move in a gentle rotation, like turning a stone, slowly in your hand. Some nights you speak to the tired heart. Some nights you meet the shadow. Some nights you remember the inner child. Some nights you rest in the quiet presence of the self that Jung described as the one who holds the whole. To make this real, let yourself settle into a very simple structure. 1 or 2 sentences to name how you feel. 1 sentence of validation. 1 sentence of invitation or permission. That is all. Not a script to perform. More like a small doorway you can step through before sleep. On a tired heart night, it might sound like this. My heart is tired. There's a weight in my chest that does not want to care about anything. Then, the validation. My heart is tired, and it is allowed to be tired. And then the invitation. Tonight I give my heart permission to rest without explaining itself to anyone. 3 quiet lines, a different atmosphere. On a shadow night, when harsh thoughts are loud, you might say, "There is a cruel sentence in my mind right now." Then, this harsh thought is a part of me, not all of me. And finally, I am allowed to watch this thought without obeying it. This is Jung's shadow work in ordinary language, turning projection into relationship instead of self-attack. For the inner child, the words can become softer. There is a younger me who still needs gentleness. Then, you are allowed to be scared and small with me, and the invitation, tonight I will not abandon you, even if all I can offer is my attention for a few breaths. On a self night, you might simply say, something in me is still watching and holding all of this, even when I feel numb. Then, I trust that deeper self to guide me slowly. You do not need to follow a strict order. Let one focus arise from whatever feels most alive or most painful that evening. In Jung's language, this honors the unconscious, which often knows before the conscious mind where care is needed. And on the nights of heavy numbness, when even this feels like too much, the practice can shrink to a single honest sentence whispered into the dark. Tonight, I feel nothing, and that is the truth. That still counts. The goal is not eloquence, the goal is contact. To help your body remember, you are allowed to weave in a small ritual, a dim light, a hand resting on your chest, a glass of water placed by the bed, a dedicated notebook with only a few lines per night. These are signals to the mind that it is time to turn inward. You will forget some nights. You will skip others. You may even resist and hear the old voice say, "What is the point?" This too is part of the conversation. You do not need to start over. You only need to gently return the next time you remember, as Marcus returned to his own pages again and again. Over time, this ongoing self-talk becomes a long conversation with the self. It will not only touch your dreams, but also your smallest motivations, the way you reach for your phone, the way you speak to your own pain. In the next part, we are going to spend some time with these subtle changes and how to notice them without rushing them. So now, wherever you are, we are going to let this come to a quiet close, not by turning the mind off, but by speaking to yourself in the same gentle tone you have been practicing, as if this were the first night instead of the seventh. Let yourself settle in. Feel the weight of the tired heart you carry. Feel the way the body presses into the bed or the chair, how the numbness and the ache and the small remaining threads of care all live in the same place. You can talk to yourself like this, even when no audio is playing. You can say, very simply, I see that you are tired, short, honest, without decoration. You do not need to explain yourself to anyone in this moment, not even to your own mind. Tonight, I want to offer you a blessing, the kind Jung might have whispered to a patient who thought they were beyond help. A blessing for your tired heart, for the shadow you carry, for the inner child you once were, and for the self that has been watching over you from the depths. To your tired heart, you are not a problem to be solved. You are a signal. You are allowed to move slowly. You are allowed to rest. You are allowed to not have everything figured out. Your heaviness is evidence that you have cared, again and again, even when it cost you. To your shadow, you too are included. The anger, the jealousy, the impulses to disappear, the part that wants to burn it all down. You are not banished tonight. You are allowed to sit at the edge of the circle and listen. You do not need to be cleaned up before you belong. To your inner child, the small one who learned to work, to please, to hide, to go quiet. You have done enough. You are allowed to be confused. You are allowed to want simple things. A glass of water, a softer voice, a hand on your back, and to the self, the deep observing center that Jung trusted more than any passing mood. Sit here with them. Keep watch when their conscious mind cannot. Let dreams carry what words cannot carry, and let morning bring only the next tiny step. There is also the part of you that does not care, the part that hears these words and shrugs. It is not outside the blessing. It can lie down, face turned to the wall, and still be held in the same quiet regard. In your mind's eye, imagine the self as a calm presence at the edge of your bed, not dramatic, not glowing, just there, breathing with you, keeping watch as you sleep, even on nights when you forget every sentence you have learned. Before you drift, choose one simple sentence from these nights to carry forward. Perhaps, I am allowed to be tired. Perhaps, something in me is still listening. Perhaps, I will take the smallest possible step. Repeat it silently, like a soft stone in the hand of your attention, until it begins to blur into sleep. You do not need to become hopeful tonight. The goal is not to wake up transformed. It is enough that you listened. It is enough that some deeper part of you has heard. Wherever you go from here, you are not going alone. This conversation with yourself can continue in whispers beneath the noise of the day. For now, let the words thin out. Let the mind soften. Let the night hold you in its long, patient silence.